Hey, everybody. Good evening. Great to see all of you. Great to see all of you in the chat. Once again, thank you very much for being here. It's wonderful as always to have such a wonderful and engaged chat. So many opinions. Please dump them out, everybody. I'll be sure to read them as I'm going through the review. Don't you worry about it. We'll interrupt these people. All these people on the panel, the panelists, they've got so many opinions about this book. This book is heated. It's got a lot of discussion around it. People are wanting to get their say. They're pent up, you could say. They're really pent up over Godlike, John Malin's book. Yeah, there's a lot been said about this book on Twitter, but people want to know the truth. What is the real deal with Godlike? That's what we're here to find out, everyone. We've got a full house. I think 5 panelists. It's probably the most we've ever had on a review, but for this one, it was absolutely necessary because the demand is just too high for honest opinions. And that's all you're going to get here is just honest and objective truth. And for that, I do hope you'll smash that like button. AC Pritchard, great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Always nice to have new faces in the chat. Great to see old faces too. We've got Matthew Fowler. Matthew's already giving us a preview, what to expect. 6 out of 10. Too much telling and not enough showing, and a ridiculous amount of mostly blank pages. The base made from a giant turned to stone was the coolest part of the book. Very interesting. Thank you, Matthew. And we would have loved to have had you on the panel, but don't you worry. You'll be back in the future. We've also got Mr. Von Stugel. You didn't like 6 spreads of circles, nebulae, and black? Wow, the opinions are already coming fast and hard. We've also got Aldous, says greetings to all. We've got Dr. Darkwing. He's ready to get dangerous. Yes, let's get into a dangerous review. Let's get everybody into trouble. Get everyone canceled. We've got Bat Sauce. He says, beep, beep. James Hurley. B.A. Turner got mad at me for saying Michael Mann, the guy who made Heat and Collateral, is a better filmmaker than Zack Snyder. Feels a little off topic, but thank you for sharing, James. Appreciate that. Snuggy's here. Says, what's up? We've got Camel Moon also checking in. Who else? Lasmat. Some exceptional art and exceptionally bad writing. Dang. Chad is not holding back tonight. Sorry, everybody. We've got to have an advisory up front. There will be hurt fifis, I believe, because there's not going to be any holding back of opinions. Unfortunately, it's not a shill review. Jazz Stylor says hi. Hi. Great to see you. Colin Lamping says hello. Friendly people in the chat, too. Very neighborly chat we have here. Kyla Adrienne. I'm ready for this review. We're ready to, Kyla. Thank you. Hope I didn't screw up your name too badly. My apologies. I'm nice. You just got to get to know me a little. Otherwise, I'm kind of an ass. Henry Bemis. What's up, folks? What up, Henry? And Jeremy, Ice and Fire. Ready for some thoughtful thoughts. Daniel P. Riley, of course, is going to be our interview tonight. Daniel has an amazing book, JISEDAI, and he's got already the second campaign up for crowdfunding. He did well on the first. He's working on the third issue of the series, and he's got several books in the bag already. So he's definitely a creator to keep your eye on. Stemming from the Iron Age. Hail the Iron Age. Great to see you. And we look forward to speaking to you after the review. Of course, you'll also be joining us on the panel. So maybe I should get to the panel. What do you guys think? Oh, we got Joam Sontag. He's here in spirit. Also in the flesh, from what I've heard. Let's see. But not on the panel. No. We've got on the panel, though, John Lombox. He's he's already upset. John, we're gonna have to kind of soothe that savage beast when you jump on the panel. You know, we're a friendly bunch here. 3 minutes of horrible music. I can't take much more. I'm sorry, John. It's a throwback to the 90s. What am I gonna say? Ja Rose here. Oliver 656, send Fowler the link. Yeah, I wish I could. Like I said, 5 people on the panel, guys. Squishing pumpkins, says Lord Ravener. Too many people jumping in. Too many. All right, everybody. Let's try to jump in already. Said hi to as many as I possibly can, and the chat just keeps going on me. It just keeps going. James Hurley says godlike, more like god awful. All right. Let's save it for the review. Let's bring on the panel. Who do we have here first? Let's start with the man who needs a hug. Let's all show some generous and sincere love for this beloved figure of the community, John Lombard.
Hey, how you doing, everybody? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Good. No complaints.
Doing a review?
I'm sorry?
Is this your first time doing a review?
Yes, yeah. I don't usually do reviews.
Oh.
I've been on YouTube for about 4 years. I think I gave 4 reviews. I normally just talk about comics that I like.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Don't be too nervous. We've got some experts here, so they'll guide the way and they'll show you how to give your honest opinion. The man who's always honest and never gives a false statement. Aldous. Yes.
How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Pleasure to be here.
I sprung that intro on you. Yes.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
The check just cleared. Well read, so thank you.
Oh, damn. It's supposed to bounce. Crap. Can I send you another one and you give me the money back?
Yeah, I'm all over that.
Oh, yeah. All right. Great. Speaking of all over that, we've got this one who's going to be all over us. Twitless.
What's up?
Oh, Twitless. You always land like
letting you down already.
You always land like a wet fart. All right, let's pump it up a little bit. We've also got on the panel with us Daniel P. Riley.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Daniel. Sorry if our tone and temperament here is a little bit too gruff, a little bit too fast paced.
Don't worry about it. You guys should see IAK on Fridays.
Okay, IAK. What is that?
Iron Age Nights. It's Royce from A Drink with Crazy, Justin from Everly Music, and myself interviewing independent creators and just being rowdy.
So you guys get pretty spicy there on the show?
Yeah, we get silly, and I tend to be drunk by the end of it.
Good. So do we. And the spiciest we have is with us as well. We also have, of course, the man who puts spice into spice, Matt Barr.
What's going on? Spicy.
Spicy. It's a spicy
going
review
on
tonight.
Yeah. What's going on, panel? How you guys doing?
Good. No complaints.
Doing very well, thank you.
Good. How are you doing?
Can't complain. Well, I'm about to, but
Yeah, you say that. Okay.
So, yeah, the panel is primed for this discussion. So there was a little bit of a preview in the back. I think everybody kind of has a sense of exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Let's jump right into it. Let's bring up the Godlike campaign. So, all right, this is early CG, and yeah, it was pretty popular when it crowdfunded. It's August 2021 when this book first jumped onto the scene. 2,820 backers, so not too shabby. Almost 3K, and almost 300K raised, but just a little shy. 258,000. So, not too bad. John describes this book as everything I loved about the magic of Saturday mornings, comic books, anime, and cinema. Best described as Star Wars meets John Carter meets Jack Kirby. That's some three-way.
Yeah. It's a little sus. Go ahead.
Here's the pitch. All hope for humanity is gone, or so we thought. John Malin is here to save everyone. He's here to reinvigorate the American superhero genre. But only 10,000 years from now, you got to wait, guys. That book is going to take some time to fulfill. 10,000 years.
Wait a minute. I missed this. This is supposed to be a superhero comic?
Apparently.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was like sci-fi.
Right. I mean, I'm not trying to be like a jerk or anything like this, but I totally missed. Like, this is as far from a superhero comic as you could get, which isn't a problem. I mean, I got no problem with this. Is like a sci-fi comic, square in the middle of. I did not get superheroes one second. So I mean, this is a criticism I didn't even know I had until. But then again, it's my own fault, because when I want to back something I don't even read, I'm just like, oh, I back. So.
Yeah.
I fall in this trap a lot where I notice when I receive the book that I backed, it rarely matches the pitch that was given on the campaign. So
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
10,000.
I think it's because a serious marketing problem. That might be one of its biggest faults. Because you need to be able to pitch, because you can pitch lots of different types of stories and genres, but you can't just appeal to everyone and everything. Superhero genre comes with a set of expectations. Sci-fi, experimental sci-fi is a very different breed of animal, and if you conflate the two audiences, you're going to piss off a lot of people when you could just say, hey, my normal superhero peeps, this one's probably not for you, that sort of thing.
10,000 years from now, a new dark age is upon us. One man haunted by visions of a bygone age and a mythical world known as Earth must remember his past to save the last of humanity on a distant, dying world. In an age where magic and super science are one, to kill a god, a champion must become godlike.
This just is making me think. Can anybody think of a successful superhero comic that is set 10,000 years in the future? Like, to me, superheroes is modern Earth. And when I say modern, plus or take 100 years. We all agree.
You got Legion.
Yeah.
Legion of superheroes is
corrected. Legion is the only superhero. Okay.
You can.
Yeah,
do it,
Legion of superheroes.
Okay, I stand corrected. I forgot about the Legion. Yeah.
Even that pushed it a little bit.
And isn't like some of their biggest adventures here in the modern time, or
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Legion.
A lot of
Legion
them
had a
were
lot of
them
time
traveling
travel
into
back
the
and forth
past.
with Superboy. All right. I mean, that's not 10,000, but 1,000, 10,000.
generally there's some
outliers.
Yeah, but for a general thing, you're not like 10,000 years.
Okay. So I stand corrected. That's fair. I forgot about, and I love the Legion. So there you go. So all right.
Before any of you give any opinions, I just want you all to know they're null and void because Shane Davis has already called this groundbreaking. So,
Oh,
Well, that's a wrap.
Well, then,
review
show's over, folks.
Did he elaborate beyond that, or was it
No,
just
he,
that?
he didn't need to.
Apparently,
Groundbreaking says it all.
I'm
you
not
see,
sure
that's
what was
in the-
groundbreaking about this.
yeah, and that's in the. Can you add that into the campaign? Right? Like, did you? When did that get quoted? Like before he read it?
Yeah, apparently.
Smiller wants us to get on with it.
Oh, hi, Mark.
We're taking too long.
Yeah.
All right. What's groundbreaking is it's 48 full color pages. So, and actually, yeah, I'm going to torture everyone just a little bit more.
Only 48 pages.
The pitch for Godlike 2 is interesting. So it continues to set the framework of what Godlike is. Maybe I'll just do the first paragraph here, a little bit of the second. First, I want to thank all of you for your support, large and small. It means the world to have been able to create Godlike for you. Largely a salute to the cartoons of the 1980s that inspired me, and probably you as children. Thundar, Thundercats, He-Man, Blackstar, Voltron. If there was a power sword and a strange world to explore, LFG. Let's keep it PG. By now, you have discovered that Godlike is not your average comic book, breaking the traditions of American comics, design execution as promised.
Oh my God.
Intending to put the reader into the book, tapping the reader's imagination like a novel, a child's storybook in essence, but for adults. A book called Godlike could not be something to just read and forget, but had to be felt and absorbed, worth study, a challenge to the reader and myself. Many seem surprised by its concept and complexity, having expected a simple and typical beat-em-up style comic with explosions, something you could walk away from. But they reported finding something else. Dun 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 dun.
Who's they?
They reported findings. Some oh my God, dude.
All right, let's get into it. So, John, let's start with you.
Okay.
Give us your synopsis. What is Godlike about?
Beats me.
Mm.
I mean,
Excellent
full
work.
disclosure, I love John Malin's art. You know, I was excited to read Jawbreakers. I got all of the Graveyard Shifts, Godlike, Omega Storm, and I freaked out because I couldn't find this. I misplaced it. So when I found it, I got so excited. I read it right then and there. And so, I mean, I wanted to like it. I keep saying to people, like, when you go to a restaurant, you sit down at a meal, nobody in their right mind says, man, I hope I hate this dinner. I hope the money that I'm paying for food, I hope it's bad. So I wanted to like it. But by the 5th page, I was utterly confused. I had no idea what was going on. To right now, I can't remember what the main character's name. So I just thought it was a disjointed mess. It was a prime example of telling me what was going on, not showing me what was going on. And he kept. Does anybody remember that movie Reign of Fire about the dragons?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
I went in that movie going, oh my God, I can't wait. This is going to be awesome. And then in the opening scroll, they talked about waking up the dragons, the tanks fighting them and everything. And I was like, oh my God, this is good. And then the rest of the movie was like guys farming mushrooms in underground. I was like, the best part of the movie, they just told me about. And that was this comic. It was panels of like, oh boy, you just missed it. There was a great battle. There was cosmic armadas. There was soldiers fighting. And then I see two guys standing next to each other talking about a sword. You know, I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Jack Kirby would have had people killing each other and beating each other up and planets exploding by the 4th panel. So that was it promised so much. Like every issue promised, I mean, every panel promised so much, but it failed to deliver. And if you remove the writing, it's so disjointed. The storytelling makes no sense. You cannot follow along. It's posters. It's static posters that do not connect.
Accurate.
You know, it's not sequential art. It's cool drawing. Again, I will never say anything bad about John Malin's art. It's beautiful artwork. I really do like it. But it's postcard.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's almost like I could take each panel, cut them up, and throw them in the air and land them down, and put the same words and I'd get the same story.
You hit us with a mouthful, John. There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I talk too much?
Yeah, there's 5 of us on the panel. Big guy.
All right. Well, that's what you get when you ask me a question.
No, I wanted
say
you.
let
Now you know why my wife says go downstairs and stream.
I wanted you to get it out because I know you've got thoughts and you wanted to have your say. So
Okay.
it's
Fair enough.
more
And
than
I got no
welcome.
problems
Thank
telling me to stop talking.
you. No, it's not that at all. I just I wanted to take it back just a step. And
Sure.
Twitless, can you give us a bit of a synopsis? Tell us if in your summary of what you think Godlike was about.
Excuse me.
Oh heavens! Do you want my blockbuster VHS, or do you want me to actually try to make sense of this?
In a world.
Whatever
exactly.
you want to go with. Yeah, you go for it, Twitless.
Because I totally had this like 40K line I was going to work into that. Anyway, so Godlike is more like a kind of like a prologue or a setup for a much larger universe and story to be told in that universe. I think that's the best way to kind of like sum up what you get when you open this comic. And so stuff does happen in it. But the main gist of this is the fact that this is kind of a lot of exposition and lore setting up a story. And the story is about, far-flung future, the remnants of humanity struggling to survive against hostile alien threats, and humanity being pushed to the ropes, being pushed to extinction. And, basically the one hope, which is the Romulus, the kind of, life force behind humanity, finding a new inheritor to wield it through this special sword. Basically what happens in Godlike. That's the general gist of it.
That was a good attempt. What did you think, Aldous? Does that pretty much cover everything?
I would just add to it that it feels like it's really reaching for something. I don't think it might have an end goal in mind for where it wants to go, but I don't think it knows the roadmap to get there. And so we go about it in a fashion that is understood. And that fashion that is understood is this book, it screams Rob Liefeld influence, which makes sense because John worked with Rob. But at no point do you ever get the impression that it has any direction on where it's going to end up. It drifts everywhere. As John pointed out, like the first page opens with a little blurb, like you get in a lot of books, where you're just going to kind of set the stage. And then you turn the page and you get a splash page that is both pseudo map and then more lore dump. And there is more story hinted at in that lore dump than you get throughout the rest of the book. And I think that's kind of a letdown. So just to add that into Twillis, it really feels like it's reaching for something, but it doesn't know where it's going.
Reaching is I'm glad I've seen several people, Mike Miller mentioned it in the chat as well. John is attempting to artistically and in writing reach. That's what this project is. He's trying to stretch his art in new directions. I think he's trying to stretch his storytelling in different directions, and he's trying to be experimental. And
right, and I think where it fails is at no point prior to this has he tried to stretch any of those muscles. And writing is something that takes time. You're not just going to sit down and pen something amazing. It takes time to build that, just like it does art. So what he's trying to do, yes, I think he's reaching, but man, it's like trying to rebuild, a full engine before you can work on your lawnmower.
I was imagining like a quadriplegic, like trying to stand up out of his wheelchair and just falling face first. Like, yes, like we're all like clapping, like, yeah, he tried to stretch out his new muscles. These are fucking atrophied. This motherfucker fell face first, dude.
I don't think
no, like a cripple.
Okay, so I think it's. I was about to say that he is stretching and reaching, And I can
audience reached. He reached.
Yeah, right. I can applaud that. I think it's also fair to say, just because you're being experimental doesn't mean that your experiment worked. And so I think that there's a couple things there's some things in Godlike that do work, and I do like them. Cards on the Table, I kind of like Godlike because of what's happening in it, but I can't help but also point out the fact that there's a lot of flaws that are weighing it down.
Yeah,
And
I'm most mad at like the potential that it had, because I was like, oh shit, I'm walking in like this is Malin just fucking laying it on the table. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, here it is, couple years. And I'm like reading it, just going, man, what the fuck? Like, why didn't he do it this? Or why, it's just not what I was expecting. It was just
when I read this,
there's so much potential.
Right.
The first line in the book just says 10,000 years from now, the galactic wars have ended and a new dark age has begun. Boom. That's it. That's all the setup you need. You could literally cut the next couple of pages, and where it says Swordfall, North Territory, just go right into the characters.
I'm okay with like the map of like the little planets. I
don't know.
Okay, hold on. You have this little map, but you overlay like long vertical panels of like one panel of them of like the fleet, another panel of them having a fucking war battle, another long panel of like them crashed and like rebuilding humanity from fucking scraps. You know what I mean? Just like 3 of them, just snapshots, just buck wilds, and like they could be John Malin up close of people's faces. You know what I mean? As maybe just some like silhouettes of shit in the background. That's where I'm like, damn, that would have been so fucking cool. But instead, it's just like paragraphs on some shit that I knew only took them like half a day to fucking do. Like,
I'd like to try and sell this a little bit more to John's Long Box, because I think that part of the problem with Godlike is the fact that John is taking an idea that is not compatible with expectations that people like John have, and he's trying to sell this idea, and he's not doing a good job of selling it. And so I'm going to give it a shot.
Me or Malin?
No, I'm going to try to sell John Malin to John Longbox for a second.
Oh, okay. Too many Johns.
I know, right? Too many Johns. So part of what John is trying to reach for, and this is the part that I like, is it's in the name, Godlike. And so this idea in this comic, and he's even trying to break the rules of what comics are. So we'll just say visual storytelling. And he's trying to say, okay, if I'm going to tell the story of a god or something that can kill a god, I have to be this visual medium needs to be larger than life. The pages have to be bigger than reality. And so he doesn't want to have, the normal grid panels. He wants the page to like swallow you up. And he wants the characters, because this is something that you see in some of Bande Dessinée, where you have or the European French scene, where they'll make the characters like really, really small, and they'll make the background really huge. John Malin inverts that. He makes the characters enormous, and he makes everything else almost smaller at times. And so he wants these mythic characters to have mythic proportions. And so it's less about the story in some cases and more about the experience of this godlike idea. That's what he's trying to do. And I kind of like that idea, kind of tickles my fancy, I will admit. But again, it's in the execution that I think there's a lot that weighs this down.
So let's just take that for a minute. This is something that is important, because a lot of times with indie books, you get rote attempts at whatever they liked, right? And so if they liked Batman, you're going to get a rote attempt at Batman. If you liked watching gargoyles, you're going to get a gargoyle book. If you like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're going to get a mutant team up book. He's trying to do that. I don't think John has ever, at least from reading this, I don't think John's ever really read much European comics. I think he's probably watched a couple of sci-fi movies and had maybe looked at Meta Barons a little bit, and he's trying to do Meta Barons, but it doesn't work.
Is he?
I think so. I think it's like an adolescent attempt.
I'm like, did he ever pick up a heavy metal mag? Did he ever pick up a heavy metal?
I'm sure he's flipped through it. I mean, you can't. How can you be over 40 and not have flipped through a heavy metal?
Because I don't know. I always imagine.
Did you read it?
Balls deep into '90s comics. Like he is just.
And that's
like
where
that was who he apprenticed, and it's like there's no getting out of that fucking rut. Honestly.
No, and I agree with that. I said that earlier. Everything is through the lens of Liefeld, And because that's who he worked with, that was his mentor. And so you get a half-baked understanding of how you do something like the story he's trying to do, but it's stuck in this 90s style that doesn't work.
But is that itself a bad thing? Like the idea that
No,
you
it's
take,
not. Throughout this book, you've got, I would say there's 3 books that I saw throughout this with his layouts that I definitely got the impression inspired this. Thor 380, which is the famous Walt Simonson all splash book. I got a sense that was in there. Superman 75, Dan Jurgens, The Death of Superman. There's some moments that really kind of harken back to that. And then Spawn 10 with Dave Sim and Todd McFarlane. I saw massive influence from all those books. All those books are splash page dominant books. That was here. But then, there's a piece of me that wants to say there's some Eyes of the Cat in here from Mobius and Jodorowsky, but I don't see enough of it that I don't think he's referencing that. But I think he's headed. He's just 40 years behind, that some of this stuff's already been done. And if he would have read a little bit more, I think his execution would have been a lot better.
See, I think
Joe, you're gonna have to suck it up and take it.
It is cool. I did notice that, like, the double page spreads, like each thing was a double page spread. I was like, all right, that's not bad. That's not I'm like, yeah, that's a cool thing. But then when I zoom in, I'm like, page 16. I'm like, oh, what a shitty designed 8-armed flying monster. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is stupid as fuck.
I'm okay with taking like Drule and like filtering it through Rob Liefeld. I just think that we could do it better. There's nothing wrong with taking Rob Liefeld's style and like doing something more like
I'd like to see his style. If I want to get Rob Liefeld, I'll go buy Rob Liefeld stuff.
No, I'm just speaking in
Well, let's.
I know, but it's just so Rob Liefeld. This whole book, like the clenching of the teeth, no fingers. It's just like.
So let's.
Clone sucks.
Let's deviate just a little bit. So, story structure, Daniel. Maybe let's bring you in a little bit into the conversation. What was your take on John's approach here to excluding the ideas of Rob Liefeld and European comic influences, just from a pure reader's experience? How did you take it in?
From a pure reader's experience, none of it works. Not one thing transitions into the next thing. If you look at the page that you have open on the screen there, it's all separate instances, and the connectivity is supposed to be in the dialogue, the lettering that's done there. And it functions in that way. But what I was thinking about is everybody was talking about this, and specifically when you were reading the from the campaign page, if you take all the lettering out, you take all the words out and just look at the images, it's that 45-second intro trailer to a cartoon in panels. The whole comic is set up that way. Very flashy on the surface imagery and little bits of leading narrative, like in the middle there, dude holding the sword up in front of the stairs. That's a very powerful visual image that you would see in something like that. Then when you try to put the actual words back into it, from start to finish, none of it makes any sense. So it's like there's historical background at the beginning, and half of that historical background gets negated within the first 10 pages of that dialogue about what's going on. They're like 10,000 years have passed, and when the main character starts talking, Atreus or whatever you want to call him, when he starts his narrative sequence, there's no transition there, so you kind of don't realize it at first, and you think it's still the narration from the beginning. And then when you do realize it, he starts talking about only being in the wilds for a couple of years, and these things happened a couple of years ago, and trying to set up a historical timeline. Like I literally tried to set it out after I finished reading it, it does this. It goes ding, 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 and it's like
there's a lot of like mental math that he's asking you to do, like 10,000 years, then another 800 years, then 1,000 years
So I think-
before then 2 generations. Yeah, there's
Without-
like, dude, does
what
any
it
of these
really
numbers
feels
matter?
like to me is a first draft that got turned into a sold
getting-
content product. Like
without
there
getting-
was no afterthought involved.
I just
Without
wondered,
getting-
did anybody
Right, there's
not
no
involved-
editor.
did
without
anybody
getting
read this? Was this script given to anybody before the art was drawn? Say,
I have
read
no
it.
idea.
Wait,
I
look
would
at the
love to
credits.
find
If
out.
does not
If
look
you go by
like
the
it.
credits, then
Wait,
yes,
wait.
John Malin wrote it, and then John Malin edited.
right, exactly.
Yeah, dude, I saw that. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Can I cuss on this stream?
Sure, yeah, please.
Doesn't that sound
for
a little
fuck's
crazy?
sake.
Yeah,
Well,
dude. Okay, so I have
John is-
scripts
no,
and
John-
I'm
John is-
showing them to other writers like while it's in outline mode. You know what I mean? Like while it's like still in like an outline mode, I'm like showing other writers and like, yo, does this work? Does this make sense? It's way easier
So
to
I think
take
John-
notes. This is I don't think he showed it to
I
anybody.
think John has said on other shows that he really keeps his stories very close to the chest. Not defending that, I'm just saying like this. It's a very intentional choice that he makes, and I think
Intentionally bad choice.
Yeah.
without getting into like nitpicking like the timeline, one thing that I can definitely say is one of the biggest anchors around Godlike is the amount of exposition. And it's not just the kind of, because again, to bring up, some other like, European style people who can make some, they can overload the page with prose on purpose and you're supposed to get lost in it, but it's got a lot of, rhythm and poetry to it. And you're supposed to just kind of like, get lost in a sea of words. This is actually like supposed to be like setting up story lore, but you get a dump of it and then you get more dumps of it. And then the climax of the story, the climax of Godlike chapter 1, the apotheosis of our hero, you get yet another lore dump for more civilizations. And it was like, we already had like 2 or 3 that we were trying to juggle at the beginning of the story. I don't need a 3rd or 4th, alien exposition dump. And like I said, it's just over and over and over again. And the story is heavily weighed down by the sheer amount of exposition that it just constantly throws at you.
All right, well, I think-
Specifically, that bothered me because the concept was that Altek was supposed to be a god or at least a cosmic celestial entity of some kind. And having that
That's news to me.
obnoxious exposition during that sequence just leaves
When
some
I wrote-
mystery,
I wrote
dude.
my comic script and I sent it to my buddy to read, and I was so excited and I was so happy. I'm going to make a comic book and everything. And he said to me, I don't
Kayla
care
is
about-
right.
he says, "I don't care about your character one bit." He goes, this is world building the comic. He goes, and I don't care how cool your world is. I'm not interested in one of these characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Right away, I thought he was the worst person in the world. How dare he hurt my feelings? He's a jerk. He was 100% right. And I went back to the drawing board and I tossed out that story and I scaled it all back to the point. There's barely any world building in my comic. I mean, you'll see it sooner or later if I make it to a couple issues. But it's all about a character. I'm not even joking. When I was done with this character, I was like, when I was done with this comic, I couldn't name the main character. Was his name Romulus? Was his name, like who is Romulus? And then told how cool he was, how important he was, and how badass he was. But not once was I shown anything about. I could care less. If his face exploded on the last panel, I would have been like, oh, okay. I had no connection. That's
Well,
what
and
I'm
John,
saying.
I gotta call you out on that, man. I mean, it's not
I
not
can't tell who's
crystal
talking.
clear, but there's enough there that you should know who Romulus is because he's brought up enough. I understand you not knowing what the main character's name is because that gets confusing over all the names that are dropped, but it's very clear who Romulus was. He was the wielder of this tri-sword that's the vital. They lay that all out in the, if anything is clear, it should be
and
that.
the new guy's name is Adam Ra. Once he
Well,
gets,
and
like,
I'll get to
powered up.
that when we get
The
there.
Thunder, the
But-
Thundercats moment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I think and that's very he's transparent with that on his updates. But when you to going back to some of what Twitless said, and the exposition does take you out because it's so heavy and it's so meandering. But I think more important than that, take an even bigger step back and talk about what does storytelling need to get you invested? How does it need to do it? In my method, there's 3 ways you can do it. You can connect to me intellectually, emotionally, or aesthetically. And you really need to drive home one of those. Now, there is a fourth. And the fourth is you can connect to my lizard brain with big explosions and action. That's why That's why everybody loves Predator. Nobody's focused on the plot of Predator because it's awesome. It's just constant action, and your lizard brain just takes full control. And you sit there and eat popcorn and suck down a soda, and you're happy. This tries to do the intellectual thing, and it misses terribly. It tries to do the aesthetic thing, but there's no consistent tone throughout the book that gets you there. Every time you start writing a page or a series of pages, there's a harsh wall you run into, and we change the tone of how we're going to tell the story again. And I think that's the fundamental thing. This doesn't feel like one cohesive book. It feels like an anthology of a bunch of little stories that are interconnected.
So who is Romulus then? I still don't know.
A legend.
It says it right here in, where is it? It's
Fowler
in the
says-
page where they deal with the sword. It's
Because Romulus,
Romulus
was what the legendary guy who founded Rome. Is that who?
10,000 years from now, galactic wars have
it's
ended.
called
Blah, 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 then last
it's-
guy standing. Right? What's it called? An aeon? Neon?
Yeah, you can
right.
pronounce it
It's
either
at
way.
the bottom of the Swordfall page. It's just beyond the system. Romulus broke the chains of our enemies, ceding his life for ours, ending the war, which is hearkening back to the beginning where it says in the first page.
Yeah,
that,
very first
he was
page.
called the Romulus. He was the one that wielded the TriStar, the sword of power, fought the enemy back across the galaxy, sacrificing his own life. So we established that on page 1, and then we recite it again before the introduction of the sword. So I'm not going to knock Malin for that when it's in the book and it's valid. That's not a valid critique. I do think it's a valid critique that you don't know the main character,
right?
Because his name is not clear and it's not consistently handled.
But I kept
to John's
there's more than one inconsistency in it.
To John's point, though, the Romulus also at the end gets retconned essentially as not just a man, but a life force that it kind of like resurrects itself throughout time, and that probably muddied the waters a bit.
But my point being is, if you're going to name your character Thor or Caesar, that's a real historical name. Romulus, I mean, granted, it's a mythological, the mythological founder of Rome. Is why did you pick a name that already exists? Like
this is a book where he used Atreides and just changed one letter. He used Atreyu and just changed one letter.
Oh my
he
god!
Used Crichton, which is a reference to Farscape.
If he called this the Caesar saga or the Tsar saga, I'm going to think of Rome and the actual character. So this
when you read Supreme, do you think of tacos?
I'm sorry?
I think we're getting diverted, I think, to a minor point. I don't think there's a huge problem with the name. I was more bothered by like them just dropping Valhalla and me needing to connect Norse mythology to all of this.
Yes, if you're going to use
it's a bigger issue than you may realize, though. Because to the average person that may want to look at this as a product, they're going to have pattern recognition based on certain things. They're going to see the word Romulus. Right. They have heard the word Romulus. It has a certain connotation that does not connect to the things that are going on. They've heard the word Valhalla. It has a certain connotation that connects to something. In this reference, they refer to Valhalla as sort of the afterlife, which makes sense. Those things do matter when people read comic books and novels.
Right. Don't use a name and then say, oh, it's just a cool sounding name.
And my response to that, My response to that would be, you guys are we've got a car here that has the engine doesn't run, the transmission's broken.
Well, we're
It's a
talking
rusted
about
out
everything.
shit
I'm
box,
just stuck on
and
the.
you're focused on what kind of tires it has on it.
Well,
Like,
it says it right here, first page, Romulus.
Tires
Before I
matter.
open the book, it says Romulus on it. Now,
Yeah.
Romulus implies Rome. It's
Yeah.
the founder of Rome.
I think certain sore thumbs are going to stick out harder for some people based on the aesthetics they look for.
It's
in
just
books.
one of many inconsistencies throughout the
Sure.
book.
Aldous, I'm not. Are you an artist or are you a writer or both?
Aldous is a man of mystery,
Right.
I believe.
I'm
yeah,
saying
I'm the Lizard King. I can do anything, man.
right.
Exactly.
Because I know Matt is an artist and he focuses on stuff that I'm like, wow, that one completely over my head. you
Okay,
know?
as an artist, let's maybe move past the names. Let's talk about these.
But some of
pages.
some of
here.
the stuff, there is some eye rolling. Like I am an artist, but I read a lot, so that whenever I see a word or something that was like kind of familiar or like lifted from somewhere else, cribbed, I was like, there was an eye roll. Super science, Thundar.
Yeah,
I was like,
Super
oh
science
Lord.
was painful, man. That
I was like, bro, come on, like.
nobody, and this is why, like, even if nothing else got edited, that should have gotten edited, because the super science thing is just so.
It's so on point. It's so obvious, right? It's like,
Yep.
anybody who's watched Thundar knows that fucking line and loves that line. So to throw it in there, it's like,
I love super science. I read about it when I eat my super cereal and drive my super car. All right. So as artists, from an artist perspective, let's talk about this page transition here. So we're going to blackness, and then we have several pages like this.
This is
Yeah.
Mike's favorite John
Hell
Malin art.
was that?
Did anyone else just feel like this was just filler? Like,
Absolutely.
just page count?
Yeah, dog shit.
I get what he's trying to do for the resonance, and it's fine, but it doesn't. It's 6 pages. Like, have some respect for the printer and how much black ink they're going to.
For a second, I thought when I was looking at, I thought the glare was like a galaxy forming or something. When I first saw it, I was like, "Is this a galaxy form?" Oh no, that's just a glare.
There are
fucking black.
I hate to say this, but this actually, I think, is not even the worst example of this type of thing I've seen in comics. Like, I've seen pages where it's just like ocean for pages and pages.
Yeah, Twitless.
Like, so I'm just saying this is really not that big of a.
Your first thought's not, hey, that dumpster fire is really cool, but I've seen a worse dumpster fire. You just point it out and go, hey, check out the
I mean,
dumpster.
if there was like,
It's not a
hey,
dumpster
it's
fire.
okay,
this is
a
all right,
graphic
all right,
novel
right.
version of Master and Commander, and they're out on the ocean and shit. I can understand there being like several pages of them being like, yo, we're so thirsty, and all you're seeing is salt water. I could see that, but this is just, it's unnecessary for a 48 page that you're trying to like world build and kick off. Seems kind of.
Let me try to. I'm gonna try to.
Dude, like
I'm gonna try
one
to defend
spread at least. That's all you needed.
So one spread, if we're being economical about it, right? But if we're trying to be, again, to bring up what Aldous mentioned earlier, Malin he is trying to be hoity-toity. He's trying to appeal to the aesthetic, artistic side. Let me finish. So he wants there to be this, not just like one spread. He wants it to be, this, again, larger than life moment. And this guy is apparently like hovering on the edge of life and death. And so it's this, he wants to really he wants that idea to not just be he doesn't want you to just register the idea. He wants you to immerse you in that idea. He wants to oversell it. And my question is, again, this is one of those experimental moves. I'm not saying it works. What I'm saying is that I think when we criticize it, I think it's important to understand what he's trying to do with this.
I don't think the metaphor is not exactly subtle.
I'm having such difficulty keeping track of who's even talking.
What is that movie? What is the new movie company called? A24, where it's just like really like meta and kind of bullshit shots, real long, boring shots. That's what this is. This is like a A24 comic, just unnecessarily long.
So is there a thoughtful aspect to these 6 pages, or do people just feel like they were ripped off? I don't know.
It felt like a waste of space to me, literally.
To tell you the truth, I was relieved. I didn't have to read this dialogue anymore. I was like, oh, cool.
it's a break on your eyes. But I mean, like that. the fact that you have, and this goes to Aldis's point, right? Sometimes having a beat of silence or a couple beats of silence does do something to the rhythm, and sometimes it gives your eyes a rest. I don't.
No, there's definitely a point.
It's overindulgent. It's overindulgent. I know it is.
Yeah,
that's
a good phrase for it.
You don't need
Overindulgent.
don't need 2 pages of black. Everything that you accomplish after you have 2 black pages, and then you turn it, and then you get suddenly, and then you get the explosion of light, and then you turn it again, and now you get a galaxy, and then at the bottom lower right corner of the last page before you hit your page turn, you get that stupid Atreyu nod name so that everybody thinks of Neverending Story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn it, and then I get another page that is Dr. Manhattan, the main character floating through space. And he does. This is good lettering. We're going to letter from the top left of the page down to the bottom, and then we get Dr. Manhattan again. And then we turn it, and all you can accomplish a lot of this in a tighter thing and still have the emotional resonance.
Yeah,
it's way overindulgent. I think, to your point, Twitless, I understand what you're saying, but you have to admit this is 8 pages that could be conducted down to 4.
You're right. I'm not saying you're not. I guess what I'm saying is
with the same timing. I mean, the same.
I don't know if I'd
Then
say
you turn the page, and then we get Galactus, which is neat. I didn't think he'd make an appearance in the book, but I'm glad he did.
We get a Celestial, yeah.
But like gay as well, though. Just like
Gay Lactus.
Yeah. Galactus.
Oh, all right.
Hey, do you like
what got me so mad about this was the whole writers are a dime a dozen. And you should have thrown 2 dimes out at some people and got a good script. Because I was just like, all right, writers are a dime a dozen. Like if I said artists are a dime a dozen and I gave a comic with shit art, I would never hear the end of it, and I deserve to never hear the end of it. So you say writers are a dime a dozen. Apparently editors are whatever, infinite amount of money because you can't afford them. This is just
I'm affordable.
Well, could you go to the next page? I don't really care what the creator said. I'm focused on what the creators, what's got in the book. So let's go to the next page. This page.
Did anybody smoke pot? Was it better?
This page fundamentally bothered me.
That blazed out of my fucking gourd, and I was like, "What the fuck is?"
Why would I don't? And Matt, you're an artist, so maybe you can tell me this. I don't understand why you would take that panel, that's all the way to the right, and extend it beyond the page break. I don't get that. I don't understand why you wouldn't match this up as page and page and why you'd extend it over. It just doesn't make sense to me because the page break takes away from the art on this.
Yeah.
Why you mean on the left?
Why he's breaking out of why the Spartan or whatever the fuck he is.
Yeah, the fold kind of ruins it. You're right.
Right. So, and if you're going to do it, like, okay, if you're going to do that, maybe do something in the art that draws the eye across. But again, I think of beats, I think of tones, I think of measure. I don't. This to me like took.
You know what would have been cool if I'm looking at this right? If
the
like,
spears
if I was
across
the editor,
breaks the gutter and extends over the panel.
I would have been like, hey, all right, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish panels, right? It's like, all right, you got the Spartan guy, and he'll be like, it's actually a fucking centurion. I'll be like, shut the fuck up. It's the Spartan guy. You got the Spartan guy's cape. Have something from this second panel. Have something from that breaking in another direction. Have something from that woman breaking in the other direction. Like, that would be kind of cool to have a little something from each panel breaking away. That would be kind of cool, right? If you're gonna break the panel, like have each thing have a little something breaking the panel in a different direction, going in all directions away from the center. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm with
to Aldis's point, though. To Aldis's point, and this, I'd like to hear. I want to hear Matt's opinion on this. One thing I think comic artists do when they're laying out some of these spreads is I'm wondering if there's a because if you lay out the spread flat like you draw it and you're not thinking about the fact that this is going to be in a spine that's folded, like it might make more sense when you're just drawing out this. You have to think about the fact that when you're doing your spreads, there's going to be a fold. You have to account for that. But if you're not accounting for that enough, you're going to have like lost opportunities. I'm wondering if that's something that some artists run into.
I could understand an artistic reason for doing this if there was something that was on the right side of this page that mattered. But instead, there's nothing here that couldn't be condensed down. The pyramid connection to Orion's belt could have been moved over. There's no reason. You're talking just a little bit of space on the page. There's no reason that couldn't be condensed. So I don't understand this choice. It just seems like what this does. It falls in line again with the overindulgence. It feels like we're just going to push things and do things our own way that normally aren't done simply because we can do them. And it sometimes it has worked in this book, but we just saw 8 pages of black, and now we're spreading across the page break, and it doesn't work.
He's drawing Mohammed. I don't understand who.
Well, and then the next
guy
page
is.
I've got comments on the next page too. Because I'm sorry, not the next page. It's 2 pages from here. Because then we just go into panels are us and decide to plaster as many possible into the page.
Whoa, yeah.
Which up until now we haven't done. So again, this goes back to beats and measures and tones. We've established we've got splash page, splash page, splash page, splash page, and then we get to this where what's the beat pattern? Where are we headed? How do you even? What's the eye line guide? I don't get this. Because John's been pretty consistent with eyeline guides up until we start hitting this end of the book, and then it's just a flurry of panels that they don't seem to have a rhyme or a reason to the layout. And
this is when he starts. This is when he starts doing a bunch of more lore dump.
This is where I start liking some of the writing, because he's doing something interesting with it. It still needs an editor's touch, but at least at this point, it's a little interesting.
It is, but it's also another lore dump. This is the final, huge exposition where we get introduced to more alien species after being just barely familiarized with the alien species we were trying to keep track of. So it's hard to get to this point in the book, and you're already kind of having a whole bunch of names thrown at you. And again, John Malin is not. He's doing a lot of stuff. One thing that's been brought up is the fact that he does a lot. A lot of stuff happens in the gutter. A lot of this isn't shown. You're supposed to kind of just mentally kind of fill in the blanks and keep track and juggle a whole bunch.
Well, action should always happen in the gutter, but suggested exposition shouldn't. And that's the problem. But he is doing some interesting stuff here. You got to give him credit for that. The problem is, in the very next page, he takes me all out of it with 2 contemporary drops that I don't understand at all why you would do them. Like, why are we instituting Christ at Calvary and 9/11? Like, even in context, how he's trying to thread them in, this feels the flag and Christ and then 9/11 just feels so ridiculously shoehorned in to get the rah-rah aspect that it took me out of the page completely. And if I'm being an asshole on this, then fine, I'm being an asshole. But I got to speak.
I think this is because from my knowledge, I don't think John is particularly religious, right? I don't think he's like, isn't he an atheist? Am I?
Oh no, he's a devout church boy. Every Sunday.
Okay, so the idea that he's making a story godlike is already kind of an interesting choice. Like, why would you try to, tell a story about gods if you're coming from the opposite belief perspective? So I think here, I'm not saying this works. Okay. Again, like I said, I think he's doing experiments. He's in his lab and he's mixing chemicals and, having puffs of smoke billow in his face. But I think the attempt here is to create a sort of like a myth structure. And I think that's what the Romulus is. It's this animate spirit that's in humanity, and it kind of explains and gives him something to latch onto that's not just material. So it's like flag, patriotism, Jesus, 9/11, the heroism of like just this energy that.
But here's my problem with that list. We're 10,000 years away. We're 10,000 years in the future. So this is the standard problem I have with Star Trek, right? Where they're on the bridge and they're like, "Oh, this civilization is at this stage of their development. Let us talk and only reference things that the audience is going to be familiar with." Even though we're 2,000 years removed from them. Well, it's even worse here because we're a factor of 5 beyond that.
And this
We're
brings back
10,000
my
years in the
complaint.
future. I understand that he's trying to thread like a genetic memory here of Hero. But so the three things that pop into this hero's mind after 10,000 years are the American flag, the birth of Christ, and 9/11. So there has been no other significant events since 2001 in John Malin's universe for this particular genetic hero.
And this goes back to my
that would have
criticism.
been.
What does
I had an issue
9/11
with that
We
myself.
fought the Aeon. I mean, in the beginning, he even says this, and this is like the fundamental lore drop: is on the moon of Axum, an existing mining colony. Humanity would cling to life. So nothing while they're clinging to life in another planet.
Dude,
Nothing
yes.
in the journey there.
You got those
I
three
think
little
these-
panels. You get one panel that shows maybe a caveman, then you get another panel that shows maybe like World War I, and then you show another one where they're like in space fighting in that scene that you're talking about, right? Like
I think
make
you're
up
right.
moments that are like bigger,
think-
that are more human. You know what I mean? Show the fucking Renaissance or something. You know, show
Show the first colony ship crashing, where he talks about it in the beginning.
yes,
'Cause
that was kind of
tie it back
cool.
in to your lore, dude. Matt, I'll tell you, I'm with you, man. Those first 2 pages, I want a book on that.
Yes.
If I had to guess,
dude,
if
this
I
crazy
had to
fleet, and
guess-
then they have this crazy battle, and then they have to fucking like. I mean, I'm just going, oh shit. So is this sword like part of like the ship? You know, like the crash ship. The sword is like part
My
of the
criticism,
fuselage.
I think,
No,
is valid. What he said. What does this have to do with Romulus? What
My
does
guess
the
is
word
that these
Romulus
are
have to do with
things-
9/11, with Jesus, with any of this?
because
It's
it's
just-
Malin, dude.
My guess
It's
is-
just
you can
Malin.
my
change
guess,
this
yeah, I was
fucking
just about to say that.
stupid.
My
name
guess is
Romulus
that these
has
are the
nothing
things
to
that
do
matter
with
to.
this.
I think these are the things that matter to John Malin. I think these are like the signposts of like powerful moments that define humanity for John. If you had to pick 3, I think these.
Yeah, he didn't mention Dharmaka Jalada Tanaka.
I want to ping Daniel P. I can see he's got some comments he'd like to interject.
Yeah, as far as the 3 imagery is concerned, the purpose behind it, from what I could tell, is the He-Man moment. This is the power of America. It's that's what he was going for, in my opinion. Is the Romulus, whatever you want to call it, is supposed to be a passed down power, and you know, an all for one or one for all, you know, situation, if you want to go with the My Hero Academia thing, that is now being bequeathed to this dude, and he's getting memories of quote unquote past lives in order to access that power and connect to it, which is a pretty standard hero trope for those sorts of stories. And he does mention in the campaign,
the water of life, right?
Cartoons. Yeah,
Well,
but
the next page is to me.
I
the
agree.
He-Man homage that definitely
Yeah.
comes home.
And I do agree that these 3 things seem kind of silly for 10,000 years. That was plot hole number 1. But plot hole number 2 for it was really that these 3 things are very specific to a person who lived in just that time frame, like you guys were talking about. You know, this is almost writer injecting their own bias directly into the concept. And that bothered me as a writer and an editor.
Aldous, what did you want to focus on? Did you
I
say
just
that?
said because he mentioned that Dan mentioned that the He-Man analogy is heavy here. Well, we get it in the next page,
Yep,
and
exactly.
it's not heavy. It's not. There's no metaphor. There's no analogy. It's just in your face.
It is
And-
right there, dude. Oh my god.
And
It's not. It does Thundercats when it's out of raw.
right, and then on top of that, we've also got the father, which we've already know that we've got heavy Dune references being done. So you've got the same thing as when Paul, you know, the sleeper has awakened, father,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just, it feels that that John has threaded so many attempts at connecting this to current pop culture zeitgeisty things that it's taking away from what he's trying to do. And you know, you look at like something that, like, let's say
That's fair. I agree.
let's take a Lee
I agree with that.
Brackwood book, right? She doesn't reference pop culture in her books when she's writing them. If you look at John Byrne's not threading current day pop culture stuff into his art. When Chris Claremont's writing Dark Phoenix Saga, he's not making direct allusions to the Reagan administration or, the oil crisis.
You do get the hold on. You do get the Hellfire Club. That's ripped straight from the Avengers, right down to the outfits.
Well, they're right down the street.
There's that one. So there's that one. Okay.
But I'm just saying, it seems like he's reaching a little, not a little too hard, way too hard, over the top hard into pulp culture tie-ins to get this through. And self-admittingly, he says it in his updates that you're supposed to get these cultural things in the book. And it feels so in your face.
It doesn't feel as fun when they're so on the nose, when they're so
without
obvious.
being present.
Sorry. Daniel,
there are a million ways that you could do that. Make the what we would call cultural benchmark reference without being so direct about it. It very simply, just that background image, it doesn't have to directly reference a Kansas small town farm. It could have been something 500 years ago. It could have been, as far as the story is concerned, 1,000 years ago. There could have been a moisture evaporator, if you want to use the Star Wars reference, in the background, and it still would have had the same impact.
Yeah, each frame could have been a different father, right? If he could have been, "Father, I call upon you, my father, my fathers," with an S, and then in each panel show all these different men's faces. Have one guy look Celtic, have another guy with a space helmet, have one guy with a fireman helmet. Yeah, you know what I mean? And just have all these panels, just have some faces of different guys representing, all your forefathers, your whole lineage through 10,000 years.
That you do an overlay across section. You want to talk about a good splash? You could have
I'm mad about the potential.
This overlaid on top of it, and it would have showed the entire generation of father figures that have built them up to this moment in all of his different iterations of heroes. You could have done a Three Feathers homage and shown that, despite not wanting to do something, you can still have bravery, and had moments like that built in to give the characters some depth. Instead, we get this. Now, I will disagree with Dan slightly. I actually liked the Kansas windmill and him on his dad's shoulders because it was the most subtle. It wasn't in your face like everything else has been. This is it's just there in the background, and it's only subtle because we have the massive He-Man homage right next to it.
Right. By comparison.
I appreciated it because it was there, and up until this point, everything has been so in your face. It's like getting hit in the face with a frying pan repeatedly, and then somebody just uses the back of their hand, and you're like, "Oh, that was nice."
I think one thing, if you're
gonna hurt as much.
If you're gonna steal, you have to steal harder. So, like in things like Guardians of the Galaxy, when you have characters like Star-Lord, who's he just has the pop culture. There isn't like he's not like I'm mimicking it. He just has it, and because he has it, we just kind of go along with it. If Romulus had been a character who had a bunch of a treasure trove of artifacts from the 90s, and he had like all the old cartoons and he'd watched them, then when he's quoting Thundercats, we'd actually be okay with it because he's actually because if you're going to steal, you got to steal way harder. John, you're not.
Well, dude, you lean into him having all these memories, right? He's like, "Oh, I'm this barbarian on this fucking alien planet." He touches a sword. Suddenly he has all these memories, all these colloquials, all these like new, sayings that he could be tapping into, like all the people are like, "Oh my gosh." He goes, "Oh, where's the beef?" You know what I mean? And I mean,
right. No, exactly.
I can't think of a better example for him to say something, but you know what I'm saying? Like he could be like, "Yo, it's time to Duracell. We're going to be at this all night long." Who knows? But there's ways that he could have leaned into it.
Right. So like the thing is that one thing I noticed in this book is that John Malin simultaneously went too far and not far enough. That was a weird place for me to be in, because you could actually go way harder in some of the things he's attempting to reach for. And it actually would go better if he would just fully embrace, some of the things he wants to do. But he actually kind of dials back. One thing I wanted to mention is he wants these really big artistic pages, but his paneling layout is still so very rectangular. You know what I mean? Like, if to pull out against some of the European people who can do so many crazy looking spreads where like a character is like holding up the page like a statue or something. Like, if you're going to break the bank and make these pages larger than life, don't just put them in boring boxes. Just don't make the box bigger. Like, do something other than boxes.
He's a student of the 90s, though, not the 80s and 70s when experimental stuff was being done. You're not going to get a Howard Chaykin inspired layout from somebody that's a Rob Liefeld has their mentor.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it goes too far in some places and not nearly far enough in others. And I think that's really what causes like a lot of frustration for this book and the potential that Matt Barr keeps talking about.
Well, I mean, story-wise, the potential. You know, I don't ever want to read this shit again. I'm not really that interested in the sequel.
Daniel, did you have some takes? I saw you nodding along and wanting to jump in.
Well, I mean, like Matt was saying, story-wise, taking even just one of the veritable trash bag full of concepts that we got out of the story and expanding on them instead of doing what happened in these pages would have been infinitely better. And I do think the art is quite good. I think the colors are vibrant and the imagery is well designed. It's just, it has no flow, none whatsoever.
What do you think, John? Is that mainly, besides the issue with the name, the issue with the book, that it's just disjointed? Is it scrapbook the comic?
Besides the fact that the story makes no sense, besides the fact that, you know, the words have meaning and then just the shoehorn. Yeah, I agree. Everything's a mess. I don't care at all about any of these characters to the point. What is this? This is 7/8 through. I don't know this character's name. What do they say at the next page? His name is Adam Ra. This story, it should have been 10,000 years ago in the future. There was the evil guys beat the good guys, and then boom, like Star Wars, we meet this character, Adam Ra, and it's his personal story. And as he learns everything, I learn everything. Instead, you know, I get like, okay, here's the similarity in 15 pages. And I don't care about any of these people. They mean nothing. Like my brother doesn't watch Lord of the Rings. He gets halfway through that info dump in the first 30 seconds and he's done. That's what happened. There is nothing personal. In order to tell a good story to me, I have to either hate this character, love this character. I have to feel something for this character. You know, it's well drawn, it's well colored, it's well lettered, but I feel nothing for anybody in this book. To the point, like I said, when there was 8 pages of no dialogue, I was like, great, I don't have to read anything.
Matt, I did want to ask you, though, putting everything about the story aside, since people pretty much all agree that nothing really worked as intended, what about the character designs and some of these layouts? Do you think that redeems the book to a degree, at least somewhat?
Some of the designs are cool.
Yeah.
I do like Ra's kind of layered outfit. I'm not a fan of the sword. The handle of it just seems like fucking flat.
It's weird.
The chick, I mean, it was interesting. But again, there's just like some stuff that he's just doing that was just annoying the shit out of me, and it was just hard to get over. Like all the hands clenching, some of the fists not quite holding swords, the swords looking kind of rushed in their design. Yeah, I know I didn't like it. Like now I'm looking at like, you know, I guess what
this is cool.
What page it is where it's like there's like this 8-armed lizard person grabbing.
This design is cool. I got no problems with the design. I got no real problem. It looks like 90s image art, which is what John Malin was going for, I assume. And in that respect, it works.
Is that Lady Deathbird, though, at the bottom right?
Yeah, that's Lady Deathbird. But, you know, all characters are a little derivative of other characters. You know what I mean? That doesn't bother me. But the problem is, guys, go back and read those 90s image comics that you got. Like, they suck
Oh
too.
God, no, John! Why would you do that to people? Don't recommend to do that.
Right. So
Jesus, no!
Like-
Don't listen
I like
to him. Do
Spawn.
not read.
this is inspired
Will,
by
shut
bad
the hell up.
comics. And in that
You shut up.
respect, he did a really good job of paying tribute to the original.
Yeah, I like the raw design. I like the final character of the main guy. I thought that was kind of interesting, but everything else seemed unoriginal. Just seemed kind of blah.
Did he also miss some
Can you put page,
opportunities with the
22?
art since it was held back so strongly by the story? Not enough action and not enough maybe engaging sequences. What did you think in that aspect?
I don't think there was enough engaging sequences. There's just kind of one battle. It doesn't really make sense. It's just a lot of posing and close-ups.
Yes. A lot of
Well, even on this
close-ups.
page, and I like the design a little bit, but when you get to this page, that whole second page where you've got his face right there, I didn't get that from the original drawing that we first see him and revealed. And this to me looks like a Sark ripoff from Tron. And it just fits again with the Memba berries of hints and odes to everything. It's just a constant homage at points. And I just think it's a miss.
Well, Ray, can you pull up page 22?
Yeah,
Page 22. Sure.
a Union ripoff for sure.
Reminds me of the DC New Gods.
Kind of.
Okay.
The bad
this-
new guy.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
it's just
Not
like
Kirby new guys.
So there's a couple things I
it's
want
like
to say.
Lionel
about this
Yu.
page.
Like he is such a fucking Lionel Yu wish list.
But in terms of the layout, I do like this because you have a character, you have these two brothers, and they're being contrasted with each other. And as they kind of like discuss the one brother who's dead, and the other brother who's kind of kind of a coward, and that juxtaposition as they kind of like leap at the page at you. And,
There's no leaping. They're
it's-
just fucking standing there like
Right,
everybody
okay.
else in this
I mean,
book.
in terms of the fact that they're like superimposed to us, and I do like.
Because you know what would have been cooler if they were fucking leaping at us, if they were both fucking jumping and like being talked about. Like here's like talk about them while they're on the battlefield doing.
Show
shit.
us why
That-
one is heroic. Show us why one is cowardly. Instead,
Yeah,
I'm
they're
being
not
told,
leaping,
this
bro.
is the
They're
good
just
guy.
sitting
This is
there.
the bad
I'm sorry.
guy. Okay,
I'm
I'll
sorry,
take your word
Twitless.
for it.
Okay, I shouldn't have used the word leap, but the fact that they are, like I said, superimposed in front of the action, and again, this idea of it being larger than
Action?
life,
There's action behind them.
Where's
There's
the
people
action?
clenching their teeth.
superimposed in front of the page.
They superimposed. The guys are standing superimposed in front of the other guys that are standing.
Okay,
It's like dudes
Do that
on
as it may.
dudes. It's a dude sitting on another dude.
Dude sitting over here and another dude.
There's a dude standing in front of a
All right,
dude
but
standing
this
in
is-
front of
okay,
another
perfect.
dude.
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna
there's clenched.
take the L.
clenched
I'm going to
teeth.
take the L on the word action.
I'm being
but-
told how to feel about these characters instead of
No, okay, I'm going to defend it a little bit. Okay,
We'll
because
get
like I
there.
said, just in the
No.
just in the
You're gonna
posture
defend it more?
between the two of them, just the
Double
posture.
down, Twitless.
You can tell that one of these guys is the coward. You can, and like John is attempting some subtlety here, and I like
What?
that he's attempting it.
Wait, what one of these guys is the villain? Is that what you said?
One of them is
One of them is a
Coward.
coward.
yes,
Yes.
one of them is a coward.
Okay,
Okay, and you
where
can tell just the way he draws the two brothers, you can tell which one's the coward.
No,
which one.
which one?
I'm gonna
Oh, come
disagree
on.
with you.
Come on, you can't. Oh gosh.
They both look dangerous as shit.
Right.
You,
I
you
wouldn't
one of
fight
them
either one
you'd
of
be
them.
fine with.
You don't
You
see-
got
don't-
one who's bald. Okay, he's armored up. Give me the other one. Make him skinnier. Have him hunched over. Make him a little more sly, a little more grim tongue. Not fucking Joan of Arc looking. His fucking bowl cut.
You don't see how the one is like looking
This
like
guy looks like a fucking badass fucking gladiator,
The
dude.
guy in the bald looks badass. The guy in the cross looks like he's more pensive, but I wouldn't say cowardly.
he's looking down. He's like straight down.
They're both looking.
They're all
looking
looking
down,
down.
dude. They're all, yeah.
Try again.
That's
Okay.
part of
Help
the
me out,
problem.
Tyler.
Every
Okay, all right, all right.
panel has everybody looking down at all times.
Where's the panel that they're
I
both
don't-
looking at each other's crotch and they're measuring up their belt buckle?
That's way,
Yeah,
that's way up
dude, pull
early
up that
part.
page where they're like, "Hey,
The one guy's like, "Hey, it's a
Good for
nice
you to
rodeo
show
winner." And
up.
the guy's like, "How yours get so long?"
nice,
But this
nice knee,
specifically
nice
is-
knee
that
pads.
there.
Yeah,
There
look at
we
this
go.
shit.
You guys aren't on my level of subtlety. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Look at the, and then look at the background. It's
No,
just
no,
guys,
stop. No,
guys
listen,
layered on
explain to
top
me
of guys. Like there's
Explain
no.
to me the subtlety
Get
of
on
the
my
message
level.
of
Get on my
two
level.
men
Who's the
standing
coward
next to
here?
each other, staring at each other's belt buckles. What does that mean? What's
They're
the
not even like
I
in
didn't-
front of each
I
other.
didn't
Look
pull
at.
this
They don't even
page.
look like
I
they're in
didn't- I
front of
didn't-
each other.
I'm not going to try to defend this page. I've got nothing for you. I was trying to pull.
Oh,
something
okay.
out I thought was
Fucking
stronger.
sword
I
looks
thought you
like
were defending the
shit too,
subtlety.
man.
Mm-mm.
That sword looks like shit.
I
I
just
said
don't
he-
like the big
oh,
screw. I just
I
kinda
said he
think
was
I wanna take a
trying to be
screwdriver
subtle
and
in
take
that
it apart.
moment. Okay,
It looks like a children's toy.
I don't think it's bad the screw, but it's just like the handle of it just looks fucking blank as shit. It's like, oh, I made it two colors. I don't know.
That big
Andra-
blue
Oh,
screw.
yeah,
everyone
there's
Take
a
it
Look,
big-
apart.
hard flex. Look, any fingers? Nope. Just fists. Everybody's fisting it.
There's a big screw here.
Not a
look,
single fucking finger in the
for
whole
fisting.
fucking thing.
Matt Bar's
There's a hand on the very next page, Matt. I think it's the only hand in the book, but there is a hand on the next page.
Look, that's on brand. Rob Liefeld can't draw feet, and I guess John Malin does.
Hold
draw
on.
hands.
I'm gonna pull that page up. I'm pulling that page up.
Yeah, it's when the sword. He goes to grab the sword. You see his full hand. That's the only one that comes to mind. Everything else is in shadow. If I'm right.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's correct.
Oh yeah, look at that. He does a little bit of a hand there. That's what took him the whole time.
shows you guys.
Articulating the
Motherfucker
digits.
spent 2 years figuring out how to make two hands. Yeah, just looking at the junk. Just look at two guys just really flexing their shit, looking at each other's junks.
If we start talking anatomy, Mike's going to start talking about Bridgman's, and I don't know if I can handle that. So we should probably.
Dude, the anatomy is insane in this book, dude. It is just like, oh well, whatever I
That
thought was
doesn't bother me.
cool.
Yeah, there's
If
not a
I
whole lot of
wanted photorealism, I wouldn't be into
panel to
comics.
panel.
So I'm forgiving on that.
It kind of bothers me a little bit. It's
Well, you're an
like
artist.
everybody looks the same except for their hairdo. That's the only, all the guys are just same faces. It's just
All right. I guess we should
yeah.
probably start winding down. I guess I don't know if there's much more left in
I have one question.
sure.
In this early sequence, right before this page, actually, I think there's a reference to the boy that has nothing to do with the rest of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear it.
Absolutely nothing. He's not mentioned again. He arrives with the main character, and someone says, roughly what's with the boy, and he says, don't worry about it, and that's the end of the boy. The boy ceases to exist afterwards.
Yes.
What the fuck?
That's not the only hanging issue in this one. There's a couple others.
It's probably. I'm guessing that's just a wait for book 2. I'm guessing that's probably the best. Yeah.
Dude, I'm this like little bit of story. Like people need to start putting out like full stories because this is dog shit.
Well, and I think
My
this
comments
is
the
something
full
that
story in
Quillis and
every
I have
issue.
argued endlessly about on all these reviews that we've done. In my opinion, a graphic novel should be Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, tell a complete story, and then at the end or somewhere in Act 3, you can hint at the next story to come and set it up.
Absolutely. Who's
But you
talking?
need to tell a complete story. This book, as was suggested earlier, feels like it's weird because it's the only thing I've read in a long time that has a prologue to what feels like an extended prologue.
Yep.
And nothing happens.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
What's
That's
the
the biggest
journey? What are
problem,
the
is the
costs?
guy got a
Where's the
sword.
inciting incident? I mean, can anybody even break this down into Act 1?
Yeah,
Act
guy
2,
got a
Act
sword. There you go. That's the whole plot. Guy got a sword.
Act 1, his
That's
friend
what I said.
tries to go for the sword and fucks it up. Act 2, there's a giant battle, and then he's all fucked up and he reaches for the sword and then touches it. Act 3 is activating the sword, finding out that his DNA is connected to it, and he learns about America and apple pie and 9/11. and which then gives him a fucking
fair.
reason to fight, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm energized," and then that's the end of it.
That's
Why-
fair.
And he has the sword.
Why?
And he
what is
has the
reason for
fucking
fighting?
Sword of Omens, the
Why do I
TriStar.
want him to
Is it
win?
called the TriStar?
The TriStar, yeah. It's the
TriStar.
sword
Dude,
of no
what
man.
is Tri? What's Tri about it? I don't see
Well,
anything in
The three,
3.
the three,
I
the
think
three
he was
moments.
going for the old parable that truth is a triple-edged sword. It's your side,
So
my
give me
side,
a
and
sword
the
with 3
actual
blades on it or something. Like,
But I expected, if you're gonna do homages like they do, like he's done throughout this, shouldn't it be look like the Guyver? Like, weren't you kind of hoping it would look like the
Guyver? No,
the
well, he
Crawl,
called
the
out Black
throwing
Star.
star from Crawl.
When he called out Black Star, that would have been cool if it was like they're all super tech, but then the sword is just like this giant shard of crystal. You know what I mean? Like that'd be. I mean, I'm just spitballing, but you know
Anybody
the
explain
sword
to
from
me-
Black Star. It like looks like it
Why
almost
is
looks
he
like one
fighting?
piece of steel. You know what I mean?
Why
And
does
like
he
you
need to
put it
fight?
together.
Why does he need to win? What happens if he doesn't win?
There's giant vampire creatures attacking him, and
The
then there's guys
and
with
it's
like
like
little
doing-
masks with
So what happens?
chevrons.
He got
It's
his girl.
stupid.
right?
What are the stakes here? If
His little
Adam
goth
Ra doesn't
chick,
win,
his little
what happens?
naked goth chick.
Humanity's about
Yeah.
to be.
The
Humanity's
half-naked
on the
Gnostic gets
extinction.
violated by the Emperor dude, and humanity dies. Those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
the stakes.
Right, but
The stakes
humanity's
are-
already on the
stakes are
brink of
clear.
extinction. We established that on page 1.
But they're even more on the brink now.
Oh, so we're on the brink. Now we're even more on the.
Oh,
Yes,
and don't
now-
forget the
Very
children.
much more.
So
Don't
who are
forget the
bad
children
guys?
who are told their fate so that their meat is sweeter. Like what the fuck? Remember that scene? Remember that?
Yeah, I don't like how many
Don't-
times he puts rape in.
I could go for hours on how awful the dialogue is. Don't go there.
Thank
I
you.
don't-
Because I was like, that is so cringe edgelord dog shit. Like, do you really like I get it. You got kids in a well. You know
I
what I
think-
mean? Like I don't
I think-
need you to like explain anymore.
One of John's writing foibles is the fact that I've noticed this in Omega Storm in particular, and it's like he wants to really up the ante, and the only way to do that is by sexual assault, sexual violence in particular. And it's like, you realize you can raise the stakes without making it be like, and then I raped her this way, and being like graphic
That
detail.
is his go-to, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
a lot
Hey,
of edge
and then-
mentality being done here.
and-
It's again,
And then
that's
I
where the
fucked her
adolescent-
decapitated head. You know, it's like
Yeah, yeah,
God.
And that's
I
where
don't like
earlier when I said it feels like an adolescent attempt to emulate kind of something like a Meta Barons. Is you get this lack of maturity that seems to come across in his writing the deeper you go into most of what he writes.
Yeah.
Did you guys even mention the daughter wives?
Oh my god, I
I was
forgot
trying
about that.
not
My,
to.
my sister wife. It
Yeah,
was like,
why-
what does
why-
that mean? Like, why would you throw sister wife in there? That's so stupid.
daughter-
Mother wife
daughter
is worse.
daughter wife is what it
Oh
was.
my god.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was even
it's
worse
just
than that.
so edgy but dumb at the same time. It's like
In the grim future.
All right. let's wind
Yeah.
down again. So
Yeah.
in terms of whatever narrative did work here, what's been established for, I guess, future series, do you think? Is there
I
a
wanted
running
to just
thread
bring
that
this
you can
up.
tease out?
It's a good thing I got this map with all of these names because we visited them all and they all had different flavors. Like, why was this page? Did we go? What planet are we on? What was this?
Is it
Why
Earth?
did I read all of this? Like I said, if you had just did the first two pages, sentences rather, and then skipped right here to this page, it would have been just as good. I memorized all of these locations, all of these planets, and they were never referenced.
he tattooed him on his leg while he was
And I was
reading.
told that, at the beginning of this, that, okay, John, that's not the point, but it is the point. I know all about Lorien. I know all about the Shire. I know all about Mordor. These were all places that we went to that had different economies, that had reason to be there. But none of these planets that I read on the page 2, thus implying that it was important, were visited, referenced, or it was like busy work. When your teachers in third grade just give you work just to keep you quiet. I read these pages that were totally unnecessary. Now maybe they'll be in volume 2, but I'll never know because I ain't buying it.
Was there
That about sums it up right there.
Was there any kind of narrative thread that you think would extend to issue 2?
Yes, stick to one character, tell me that character's story, and as he learns the universe, we learn the universe.
No, I mean from what was given, what you had to work with here.
Yeah, there's save the girl. Like, I mean, like at the bare minimum, you have, take the sword, save the girl. Like that's there, and like it's totally there. It's very, very evident from what you have in the story. At bare minimum, you have that.
Okay, a girl was saved.
No, we're going to.
No, we're going to.
Oh, okay.
We haven't actually done anything yet.
Yeah.
Is she a daughter?
We've gained the power by the end of this book. That's it.
Yeah.
All right.
I sure hope not. That I hope they're not related.
Does everybody feel better?
No.
I don't feel better either.
Why did you do this to us, Will?
Why did everyone do this to me? You know how many requests I got for this review?
I still kind of like it.
I now want to do my own sci-fi stuff. No, I'm like, oh my god, this shit sucks.
No,
now I want to go do my own stuff.
I'm glad you liked it. Like I wanted to like I keep saying this to people when I go to a restaurant and order food. I want to like dinner. Only a weirdo. Like people ask me, "What do you think of so and so's book?" I want to like it. Why do I want any comic book to be bad? I was really excited. That's why I pulled this in front of Graveyard Shift, and I like Frankensteins and vampires more. But I was like, oh my god, an homage to Jack Kirby, like to the point that I was pissed off when I couldn't find it.
Well, that's offensive.
All
don't say
primed
that
to like
again.
it. I'm sorry.
I said, don't say that again. That's just offensive. This is not an homage to Kirby.
Well, I was told it was, and I know. The Romulus saga had nothing to do with Rome.
to.
Let's do final thoughts. All right, John Lonbach, since you're on a roll, what's your final thoughts for the book?
The final thoughts were, dude, for a guy who says writers are a dime a dozen, you better reach into your pocket, hand out a couple of dimes, and give them to people, and get to work, because you got good ideas. And I will say that there's a germ of a good story in here someplace, but it's a convoluted mess. You need to get out of your head. You got to get out of your house. You got to go outside and talk to people, and give your script to non-comic book fans. You give your script to comic book fans, and then let them read it, and then just, tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. And people like, if you get anything like that, what was then you didn't do it. I'm talking before you put that on paper, and the script is the easiest part to work on. I imagine it's got to be difficult to change layouts once you're 13 pages in, but script, just rearrange that shit. Yeah, writers are the worst. Yeah, I got no problem with that.
All right, Aldous, final thoughts.
Well, there's a lot that I could say, but one of the things I try to do on the gutter every Friday night is if I have something negative, I always try to present a positive option, and so that's what I'm going to do. Instead of reading this, I would recommend that you go out and you purchase from 1990 James Delano and John Higgins's World Without End. It's 6 issues produced by DC Comics, and this is how it was described in 1990. A science fiction allegory mixed with fantasy adventure, told with a style and skill that any comic creator has to envy. It's a glorious, mad excursion into a world of erotic dreams and brutal nightmares. Jamie Delano's power to evoke an entirely strange world ranks with the sci-fi grandmaster Jack Vance himself. John Higgins' stunning paintings, his storytelling ability, his dynamic use of color to create surreal moods and absurd realities. It's the stuff of legend. You can get all 6 issues for less than $30 right now on eBay or My Comic Shop.
Yep.
Go pick that up. You're going to be more impressed with those 6 issues than you ever will be anything else in that style.
It's a good memory. I haven't thought about that in years. I got that off the shelf when it came out.
Twitless, final thoughts.
So this is a weird book to talk about for me, because on the one hand, I like that someone like John Malin was trying something different. It's hard for me to try to condemn somebody who is used to kind of doing this 90s image style thing, and he's like, I want to try something big and bold, experimental and different. And I'm like, you know what? yes, you should try that. You should, it's good that artists in Comicsgate are trying to reach. And if Comicsgate wants to have any lasting significance, it needs to try things like this from time to time. I also think it's not fair to judge Godlike by the same standards as a usual your bread and butter superhero stuff floppy off the shelf. Although I will concede that if it was marketed that way, that's a huge problem. We can't market experimental stuff in the same way we do, regular superhero stuff off the shelves. So that was, I think, a huge miss on the Indiegogo page right off the bat. That being said, I think if we are going to judge Godlike, we need to judge it by what it's trying to be. Unfortunately, even when we do that, even if we go that far and we judge it, okay, hey, you're not trying to be Batman and Spider-Man and stuff. You're trying to be more like Mobius or somebody like that, or Droulet, or even just, some of the other visionaries. He still falls short in several places. And so it's nice that he's trying the experiment. The experiment is not successful ultimately. I'm still interested to see him to try to experiment and to try and, to the potential and hope that he could get better on this particular experiment he wants to try. I think that he should take a look at some of what other masters have done in both layout and in writing to try to do this. And what's really interesting is that the other thing I really think he needs to do is exactly what John Longbach said, which is John has said before repeatedly, I think, that he keeps his stories close to the chest and doesn't really let other people look at them. That is a huge mistake, and we're starting to really see what the consequences of that is. Now, let's just take away the word editor for a second, because some people might be, shy about the word editor. You need to take your story and show it to someone else who shares your creative vision. Someone who's like, oh, hey, you want to be bold and experimental? Yeah, I get that. But then who can then read over what you're going to do and then say, you're going too far in this place, or you're not going far enough in others. By keeping it all as close to the chest, he is making mistakes that he doesn't have to make. These are not errors he has to make,
right?
But he's making them because of that choice. And that is very unfortunate. And again, it is critical that that gets pointed out every time he does it until he gets better at it. That's my final word on Godlike.
This is like not judging that woman who broke danced at the Olympics. She was trying to be experimental break dancer, but she was ridiculous before.
Yeah, you're quite fond of.
I'm going to judge her on what she actually did.
Yes, you're fond of experimentation, Twitless. Did you experiment a lot in college?
Oh, shut up.
He liked it so much he's still there. Kick over to Bar. I want to hear Bar's closing. He's got a bail.
Okay, Bar,
everybody, get the kids out of the room. Matt Barr is going to critique.
Go for it, Bar. All yours. Oh, Bar muted. Okay.
Yeah, it was. He gets a little trophy for trying, but he should have asked maybe for a little advice or something. Story didn't quite nail it. He didn't. I didn't like it, and the artwork sucked. I thought. Let me extrapolate on that. I didn't like the anatomy. Some of the layouts I thought were pretty boring. I didn't get some of the storytelling that he was doing. I didn't like it. Like for the cloud or whatever, for like the strut that he has, like I was expecting something better. Like the amount of time that was put into it, I was expecting something better.
And the money that I
makes me want to go draw some sci-fi shit. Like this sucks. I could do better.
That's my big problem with ISOM. I paid $35 for that book, and I was like, this is like not even potatoes.
How much did this book cost?
Let's quickly take a look.
I spent way more.
For $35, for $35 for a comic book.
It was.
I want to be like, wow, that was awesome. That was awesome. And if
$25 for this
plus shipping. Yeah. That's an important point to bring up. If you're going to do something experimental, like, you have to think about the fact that you're charging people what you're charging and what their expectations are. That's huge.
Yeah.
Right. My comics $10, guys. Complete story. I got a shill.
Thanks, Bar.
Peace out, buddies.
If you got to run, we
Good to see you,
Take it
Bar.
easy.
thanks.
Later.
Daniel P. Final thoughts.
Patriotism, Christianity, acts of terrorism. By your powers combined, I am Captain Badass. That's literally what the story felt like to me.
That is the secret recipe to being Captain Badass. I would agree. All right. I guess that's everything for the panel, guys. Thank you very much. Very spirited, very heated, very passionate. So we always appreciate that.
I like that we criticized. Like I'm not into like attacking the creator. You know what I mean? But so
Yeah. No,
we kept it pretty
No
good.
reason to attack the creator.
Yeah. No blood sports.
Yeah.
Let's actually, if people have to bounce, I understand. I'm going to do Schilling, and I'm going to jump into the Daniel P interview, if that's cool. So otherwise, here we have Daniel's book, or sorry, John's book. John, you're first.
Oh, cool.
Maybe you got to go.
Yes,
and
John's book.
I'd like to interview Daniel a little.
I like John's book.
Yeah.
This is my book. It's Heroic Tales. It's $10. A complete story, 22 pages, introducing the Patriarch. The Patriarch is 9/11 happened 10,000 years ago, and the Patriarch arose from the. No, I'm joking. I didn't tell the origin. I wanted to introduce people to the character. Like, this is just a character-driven story of a superhero, a loving father, a devoted husband, a beloved just trying to get home to spend time with the family, but he has superpowers, so he keeps getting distracted. So I'm dipping our toes into this because, again, like I said, I started out world building the comic, and I realized that was a big mistake. So this is a complete story, 22 pages, and then 8-page backup story called The Unheroic Tales, which is the origin of a major villain who will be playing a part going forward after this. 8 pages of fun ads and a letter page. So that's 34 pages for $10. Complete story, internal artwork by Renzo Rodriguez, who I consider to be right now my favorite superhero comic book artist. I can't believe he's working with me. And then it's an homage to Blue Sky, Bronze Age Marvel Comics. I'm by the time the 90s came around, I was losing interest. But Bronze 70s and 80s Marvel, that was my thing. So like I got Pat Broderick to do a cover. I tried to get as many classic Marvel comic artists to work with me. This is the back cover. This is what he's fighting for. This to me encapsulates everything about the Patriarch. Beloved father. He's got 7 children, devoted husband. He's got his wife that, if you scroll down, you can see the wife is a.
Well, I'd like to ask Twitless, is he a hero or a coward? Can you?
Well, can't you tell by that image?
Well, he's looking down. So
yeah, he is looking down. That's true.
Yeah,
he's looking down at a baby.
Yeah, he's scared of that baby because he's looking down. Go back up again. I just wanted to point out the wife. The wife there in the hat. Her story will be told in a couple of issues. There's a reason why they're off the grid. They're homeschooling. They're homesteading because he's a superhero. Let's face it, supervillains are crazy and obsessive. And then if you scroll down, this is the internal artwork. This is Renzo Rodriguez. Now look, I know I criticized John Malin, so here's proof in the pudding. Look at the storytelling right here. There's no words, but you can tell what's going on. Each panel, it's sequential art, leads to the next one. You don't know the actual dialogue, obviously, it's not there, but you can tell the story. You can tell what's going on. To me, I'm big on storytelling. And this is one of the things I do when pages of art come in. I give them to my wife. I give them to my friends, and I have them. You tell me what's going on. What dialogue would you put? And if they're completely and utterly confused, then I did my job wrong. Because I don't keep things close to the hip. I try to involve as many people as possible.
Did you name them after ancient Egyptians?
Right. That's another thing. I know I caught some hell for being critical of the names and Godlike, but I'm a word guy, so names mean stuff. Like if I'm gonna name my character the Patriarch, it invokes fatherhood. It invokes Roman and Greek culture. So this all.
Does he fight? Does he fight feminists?
I'm not going to answer that as of yet.
What is with this ad in the background here? What's going on there?
Just Renzo did a cityscape. It's so he there's like instead of Calvin Klein, there's billboards all over the place.
OnlyFans action going on.
I'm sorry.
Little OnlyFans action going on there.
Yeah, well, it's a Calvin Klein ad. KG perfume.
It's an underpants ad.
There's actually a few billboards, and a few of them actually have like either a foreshadowing or a gag in later panel. Like you see, there's like a billboard there that.
Yeah, I see it in the bottom left there.
Yeah, but that's typical city. And then there's like a lot of little Easter eggs. Like right here, we're looking at Easter eggs that not a lot of people get.
Cool.
But how many blue hairs can he topple with a single punch? That's for you. That's for you to find out. It's in the pages of the book.
Yeah.
And then going forward, every issue is going to be a complete story because I think it's a big ask to make people pay $35 and then like, oh, you'll get the rest of the story sooner or later. So every issue will be a complete story, but every issue will build like Legos on top of the next story. So it will reward people who buy every issue. But if you happen to miss it or whatever, and you pick up issue 4, you'll get a complete story because that's the way, to me, comics were supposed to be. When you picked up Spider-Man 174, you got the gist of what was going on. Maybe you didn't know who Ned Leeds was, but you knew he was Peter Parker's friend or something like that. So that's what I want to try to do. And I'm going to try to do the Jim Shooter approach of every issue is somebody's first issue. Legos, huh? I'm in. Okay, Cavill Moon likes Legos. All right, that's cool. Thank you. So
who doesn't like Legos?
I know everybody likes Legos. So every issue is going to have the Patriarch. He's my flagship character. And then so the Patriarch will have a full-length story every issue. And then I think I'll do like a 10 to 15 page another superhero. Like next issue, I'm going to be introducing a character called Mary Sue. And then if I hit a stretch goal, I'm going to do the unheroic tales and talk about villains. So there you go. That's going to be my format going forward. Main story, secondary story, and then a stretch goal story. And I got to say, Rod Mosicki did the artwork. Oscar Carreno did the coloring for the backup story. It's awesome. And Daniel De La Silva Rodriguez did the coloring for the main story. Excuse me.
Very nice. Everybody go back. Heroic Tales, support your boy John Longbox.
Yep. You could get it on Fund My Comic. You could also go to Kickstarter. They have different. There's a different variant cover on each format, and then it's going to wind down in like 3 weeks, and I'm going to have another variant cover on Indiegogo.
Nice.
Yeah, by Michael Gustovich.
All right, and quickly, let's also check out Twitless's Omega Girl, The Adventures of.
Yeah. I'm on issue 4. I'm currently getting issue 5 put together, and this is the real passion project, kind of similar to what John's saying. I do a lot of standalone stories and just classic superhero fun with a superhero who's trying to deliver a futuristic city from technological terrorists who are trying to overrun it. And in this issue that we see in front of us right here, things get magical. So can Omega Girl survive in a world that doesn't make sense? So she's kind of a logical thinker, and so she gets to face the illogical side of magic in this particular issue. And it's this is the first issue we've done that is just one whole story, 24 pages. You can get it on Indie Planet. You can do either print on demand or you can get a digital version. So price is so low, they're criminal.
That is awesome.
$5. How could you say no?
By saying no.
Yeah. If it's an illogical
thanks, Aldous. I always appreciate your
who does that art? I like that cover. Who did the art?
So that is a guy by the name of Brian Brindley, and I connected with him on Facebook. There's a connecting artists and writers group that they have there, and we've just been working together for several years now and just having a blast. I love classic superhero adventures, and I'm just excited to see where this character can
I'm
go.
gonna get this. This looks
from here.
awesome.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Now, this illogical witch, is it Hen?
Is it what?
Hen?
Hen?
Hen. You know Hen from the chat.
I
Damn
don't
it,
know.
Twitless, you're ruining the joke.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just say yes.
Just
Yes,
say yes.
it is. Okay, yes.
And force a laugh.
Okay. Ha 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 ha. I'm sorry, Hen, whoever you are.
All right. So there's been 3 issues of Omega Girl.
Mhm.
As you can see, it's Twitless's original design. She's been through quite a lot thus far. You can catch up. Each book is really inexpensive. You can get a digital or a print, all at the same price point, and definitely worth giving a.
Well, issue 4 is a little bit more expensive, and just because of the way the
I'm
economy is
out
going,
now.
I'm gonna have to increase the price by $1 or $2 just so I don't I'm not in the hole completely every time one of these things gets printed.
Squeezing blood from a stone, aren't you, Twitless?
Yeah, I know.
Jeez. There you go.
I was gonna say Aldous would totally like this because he likes Silver Age stuff, and I love Gold and Silver, Bronze Age stuff. So you should totally check it out.
Yeah,
I'm
but
looking
you're
it up right
involved,
now.
and
I want to
there's
get all 4
nothing to
issues right
agree
now.
Okay.
All right, guys, let's get to the big hurrah. We've got Daniel P's book. Daniel, tell us about your campaign on Indiegogo.
This is a second chance campaign. After my Fund My Comic campaign closed out, I decided to run a second one. This is the little American manga that could. It makes just enough to keep going. And JISEDAI is a comic adaptation of a novel series that I've been working on for years now. Those are also available everywhere. And I mean everywhere. I heard recently that they were found in Walmarts because of one of my publishers. The story itself is about a nanotech infused super soldier for a mega corporation in a corrupt capitalist future Tokyo, meeting a sex trafficked girl, choosing to save her, and finding out that his corporation has decided that she needs to die in order to bring him back from making any choices that might look bad for the company and risking their product. So he has to stand against the very people that created him and raised him in order to do what's right.
This is interesting. So we haven't seen a lot of manga inspired projects, and just before I start asking you a few more details about that, let me make sure I play this trailer for you and give people a little bit of a taste of exactly what JISEDAI is all about.
The scream always cracked me up.
Very cool. So tell us what inspired you to do a manga comic. Are you primarily a manga reader, or do you also appreciate Western comics?
I am more of a Western comic guy. I do, watch a little bit of anime, read a couple of manga, and mostly consume Eastern films. I'm big into wuxia films, and like the more modern CGI stuff has been a lot of fun that they've been doing these last couple of years. But no, I paralleled the things that have been going on in our American culture, but put them in a dictatorship run by crazy communists in Tokyo, just because it sounded interesting and built the premise of the story itself from a weird dream I had while listening to some music. It developed over the course of many years, but the point of all of this is a guy who was raised to do as he was told at all times until one choice made him see that there was more to the world and gave him an opportunity to pursue it with all of his might. And that was in doing the honorable thing. Is he was raised with the idea that he should act as a samurai, but the corporation would be his daimyo, his master, and he would fight and die for them.
Just saying good night,
But-
everybody. I'm going to bed. Good night.
Good night, John. It's great
All
to
right,
see you,
John.
man.
And I
Thanks for
just
being
bought
on
all
with us.
4 issues of Omega Girl. That looked
No,
good.
thank you. I'm going to grab the patriarch
Awesome.
as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. I'm sorry to
Don't
interrupt you.
forget to
Oh,
back
go
to
for it, man.
JISEDAI.
I didn't want to just disappear. Bye-bye, everybody.
All right.
See ya.
Night.
So, in saving this girl, who obviously is in a horrible situation, the two characters find a way to survive this world that's totally against them in different directions. I'm not explaining it very well because it's getting very late.
Oh,
It's
apologies.
explained much better on the campaign than I'm explaining it right now.
Well, it's good you've got videos up too, so that helps a lot.
Yeah, that video that the first one that you played was done by Mr. Good Stuff. Great video editor. Music was done by my friend Justin from Evely Music, and he did the music for the first one as well. My daughter actually created this particular video.
Oh yeah, that's sweet. Let's check it out.
It's a lot of the same stuff.
So she's
Yeah.
very talented, actually. That was pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a great job on it. The reason I chose manga for the comic format when I wanted to do it was because fans of the book series all reviewed it and said this thing reads like a action manga or like an action anime. And I thought, well, we can use that as the medium. So I hired a really talented artist, Kevin Jacob, and the two of us brainstormed the vision for it, which is a bit more like the old manga stuff than maybe the modern things that have been coming over in recent years. It's a bit more traditionalist.
Are you familiar with the approach to manga storytelling of the 4-act structure and the way that
Yes.
they use? Right. And so did you follow that for this story, essentially?
I've been trying to follow it for each issue, and in doing that, it's worked out to roughly translating into 2 chapters of the book, because that's kind of how I structured the books themselves. So 2 chapters of the book encompassed in each 32-page floppy comic book, and that way the story beats end on both a resolution of some kind and a tease of more to come.
Would you like to give us a description of that 4-act story structure that's used in manga? Can you?
Let me think.
Here, I can help you. I've got a plot.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's different from okay. So explain to us the traditional American 4 acts or 3-act story structure, or 4 if you want to do the save the cat approach.
I don't do the save the cat approach. I'm not fond of save the cat. It's for script writing.
Oh, okay. First time I've heard that. So
yeah, I mean, classically, the most common structure for storytelling was always the hero's journey. Save the cat came in more recent decades, and it really is modeled after stories, after film scripting and television show scripting. The design of Save the Cat just never worked for me as a writer, so I lean more towards the hero's journey, but I'm not going to hit every single beat with every single story. So to my mind, it's better to use what you can use and not try to force it into a paradigm like that.
Mm-hmm. And here's
I guess expand a little bit, just to expand a little bit, in case anybody in the audience doesn't know what Save the Cat is. It's a book by Blake Snyder. That's the last book on screenwriting supposedly you'll ever need. It's been a huge hit for, God, what, 20 years? 20 years now, probably.
25-ish.
Yeah, it's essentially the baseline for what modern screenwriters use, and you'll see it referenced a lot. All it is rehashing multiple other books going back to, God, Plato from the 1930s. So it's just a new take on an old concept that's worked very well and has had very little flaws. The problem is, much like Multiplicity, each time there's a new iteration of it, the actual essence of what they're trying to get across gets a little less important. And to this point, it's just a virtual Act 1, see cat and tree. Act 2, we need to get the ladder. Act 3, save cat, is what we have devolved down into from a literate world that was Plato, 100 years ago. So that's your background. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, the standard 3-act structure.
It sounds like you're not much of a fan, though, Aldous. Or are you?
Of what? The 3-act structure?
Save the Cat. Maybe it's...
No, I'm not. I'm not a fan. I think
oversold.
there's multiple other books that writers, number one, writers should focus less on reading what other people think about writing and just write.
Yes.
I mean,
And just read written works.
Yeah, you don't need to read what somebody else says about writing. You need to go out and find great authors and read great authors and then write. Not to emulate them, to tell your own story. But if you want to be a great writer, you need to read and write.
Absolutely.
If you want to be a great artist, you need to look at art and draw. It's amazing how those things work. You can't do it in isolation.
Draw inspiration and learn by doing.
Yeah, pretty much. That's why I'll never write a how-to guide on writing novels. The closest thing I have been working on is a way to inspire yourself to sit down and write rather than how to write. Because I find that a lot of my clients, when I do my writing coaching, have trouble getting themselves into the imaginative groove to write the story that they want to get out of their head more than need to know how to write that story.
We're doing a bit of a writing tutorial, I guess, and then we're going to jump into some properties that might have helped inspire Daniel. So stick around, Comics Mate. There's good stuff coming up. So tell us a little bit about the Japanese structure, if you're familiar with it enough.
Dikisha Tenketsu.
Yeah.
Here is where I'm going to bow out, gentlemen. I can't sit on a stream where this stuff is praised, and I'm not going to be able to bite my tongue. So have a wonderful
I'm not praising it either.
It's going to get ugly, man. So,
dude, my advice is always go with your gut when it comes to storytelling. write the story you want to write. If you want to use the 4-act structure, go for it. If you want to use Save the Cat, go for it. If you want to follow the hero's journey, go for it. Do what you need to do to get the story out of your head. But I don't say any one of them is superior to any other form.
I do like, though, how like there's a rising challenge or arc in the story right towards the end, and then the conclusion is kind of a little bit more abrupt than I think.
Yeah,
in
okay,
Western
I'm leaving
form.
now. Thank you so much. Have a good one, guys. Pleasure.
See
as
ya,
always.
Aldous.
Thank you to the wonderful chat, and have a wonderful evening. Hope to catch you all later. Bye.
Cool. Later, Aldous. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I just think that is something that you pick up from animes and from reading manga, that the Japanese form of storytelling does tend to take this approach.
Yeah, it very much does. And the only part of it that I really have a problem with is the twist, because with this, the structure system is that you have to have the twist.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't agree with that. I mean, it does work for traditional manga storytelling, but if you look at their historical storytelling, the twist didn't really exist.
Interesting. Okay. Are you a fan of series such as My Hero Academia?
I watched the anime for a while, and then I did read some of the manga, but I kind of bowed out of it towards the more recent issues that have come out leading up to the end. I feel like they really lost the plot.
I mean, it tries to borrow quite heavily from Western storytelling and integrate it into the more
Western tropes, more than the storytelling. I think a lot of manga, because manga originally was inspired by Western comics coming overseas. A lot of manga likes to play on American tropes. I don't think that they really care much for our format of storytelling, though.
So it still deviates quite heavily from.
Yeah, culturally, in order for anything to sell to anyone, it has to touch on that audience's cultural benchmarks, the things that they can connect with. We like My Hero Academia because the characters are chipper and positive, but they also have flaws and they have foibles, and a lot of them have some tragic backstories to them in some way. Those are all things that anybody can connect with. But when you look at All Might, he's every American trope in Japan. Really big blonde guy.
Mm-hmm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was hired to do like 1 million stupid advertisements in the 80s and 90s, and they loved him, but they didn't love him because he was an Austrian bodybuilder. They loved him because he was an American movie star.
Sure, absolutely. It was just the name that he was bringing over.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, for JISEDAI, sorry, I'm going to JISEDAI. Where would you say then it draws a lot of its inspiration, since you are styling it as a manga, correct?
Yeah, and like I said, the reason I styled it as a manga was more because the fans of the novels thought that it resonated that way. It wasn't me specifically going, I want to do this as a manga. It was more give the fans what they want in visual format, because it was a literary novel. The idea behind it, though, once we got into the design, was to touch on the more classic manga style, very straight lines, very simple physical designs, but still with enough detail that everything didn't look the same. And then with the campaign stuff, I thought, because I have this thing about I must finish something before I try to sell it. So I paid for and made the whole comic book, both issue 1 and issue 2. And during issue 1, I said, okay, well, if I'm going to do a campaign for this, what do I give them that makes it special? other than just being a black and white comic book. And my daughter and I came up with the idea of the color pop, which you saw in the video, which is certain things that are important or add depth are colorized against the black and white backdrop. And part of the idea behind that was the world that they live in is a very black and white world, and certain things are more vivid to people than the rest of the background. They stand out. The young woman, Hannah's dress, being kind of Lolita-ish and pink, referenced the way they dressed her up for the unfortunate circumstances that she was in. The yellow raincoat was vivid to her because it was the thing that she grabbed during her escape to cover herself with. So it becomes a sort of armor in her mind. So it has significance. And in those couple of panels where you saw the blue slash line of the main character Gabriel's sword, that was to represent that he was no longer using the weapon as just a tool, but he was putting his actual human spirit behind the attacks that he was swinging. You know, the movements that he was making were driven by more than just orders to kill. They were driven by a passion and desire for protecting this girl. There's a moral, spiritual equivalent to it.
So if I was to think of a literary inspiration, for some reason I get somewhat Quentin Tarantino vibes off of it. And
I've heard that. So, some call it John Wick with swords. It was referred to once by a reviewer as very similar, but much more high impact Leon the Professional, if you remember that movie.
Yeah.
About the hired killer and the young girl. Easy parallels, but really the story just dreamed up.
The story just dreamed up from your own dreams, from what I remember you telling. Here, John Wick. So yeah, I definitely see the parallels with that character. It would be interesting though if you decided to insert the high intensity action of John Wick.
Internet died for a second there.
Oh, my apologies.
No, it's okay. It just cut off for a second, but I'm glad I'm back. What were you saying?
Yeah, I definitely see the John Wick parallels here. This looks a lot like the character.
Yeah, the suits thing, there's a whole purpose behind it. It's part of the lore. And it's to represent the corporate atmosphere that he comes from. He's a clandestine assassin. He's part of a division of a corporation that's sort of off book, but he still has to look the part. So, you know, he wears the suits that he's given. He doesn't think about them other than these are the things that I have to put on every day. And that's really Gabriel's life. He's got a bit of a blank slate mentality in that he was raised and indoctrinated to only do his job, which is be a weapon, until that moment. And you follow the story and see that being around the girl Hannah brings the humanity that he should have had all along up to the surface, that thing that was beaten out of him.
I feel like also Keanu is kind of an apropos source of inspiration for a work in the Iron Age. Because Keanu is very much an independent, go your own way kind of figure.
Very much so.
Yeah, and doesn't really devolve himself, let's say, into a lot of the scandalous aspects of the entertainment industry, engagement, and things of that nature. If he were to be, if there were to be a hero, a figure, a representative of the Iron Age, I think Keanu would make a pretty good candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think of any independent creator, that's really why I never leaned into the CG side of things, was because independent means independent. It means you're free to do your own thing. And it always felt like trying to create flags to stand under just meant conforming to other people's standards.
Right, because you were always relying on larger voices and larger figures to drive a lot of engagement.
Exactly. And there's some drawbacks to that. Like, I call this the little manga that could, because it doesn't make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, or even 250,000 like Godlike did. It makes just enough to keep going for now. And the more people who read it, they all seem to enjoy it. So as long as it's being enjoyed and as long as it's able to keep being produced, I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, so where do you see that going? If you don't quite have the larger engagement levels, but you do have these properties that are great on their own, can withstand, any kind of test of merit. How exactly do you get them into readers' hands?
I do a lot of groundwork, and I have a small team that I've gotten together that helps me do that. I refer to them as my internet street team. So small circles of people interested in manga, or people interested in really emotional and action driven storytelling, entertainment. That's what we target. I'm looking specifically for 20 to 30-year-olds and up, because a lot of the people my age, I think, would really enjoy this as well. But the action is blistering and brutal on the pages, but in between that action is the fun juxtaposition of Hannah, who, despite all of her trauma, tries to see the world as something better than it appears to be, and she influences Gabriel in that way. So there's these great heartfelt slice of life moments in between the sword swinging set pieces.
Oh, is there a genre of entertainment then, since you're looking for these communities? What kind of format could you tap into to make sure that the communities are finding you?
That's the question. That's the one thing I have actually struggled with. And I'm really not sure. I call it an action adventure with slice of life elements. I call it a found family story, because that's what it is ultimately, is two wayward people from two very traumatic upbringings becoming a family that loves and supports each other in the end, and they're able to work through their problems. But I don't know how to package that to broader audiences yet. So a lot of my efforts with the street team have been just getting people to connect with the character specifically and want to know more about them and what they're doing. And I do a little bit of local to my street team in comic stores in a couple of states, and I get a lot of sales from those that come in, just pick it up and page through it.
I think the person that established the Iron Age moniker, though, Razor Fist, he seems to do fairly well, and his book just recently came out.
It goes to the Badlands.
He does fairly well, just staying in the lane of commentary and commenting on the culture war, commenting on how things have changed in the mainstream, and how the independents can be a solution to that.
Yep. A lot of Iron Age guys do that.
And because I think the largest established commentary group would be, the Friday Night Tights or the Geeks and Gamers of the indie space, but they don't do a lot of marketing. They haven't really tapped into that that potential yet. There isn't overlap, essentially.
No, and I think, like I said, that's partly because a lot of the guys in our sphere are fiercely independent.
Well, you're fiercely independent, but there is still that need to tap into a genre of entertainment as independents to do that.
Yep. So that's that's probably my biggest goal, is to find the right audience that I want to really tap into and pursue that. It's going to be a slow process because I'm not relying on people's audiences. I'm not relying on, for lack of a better term, groupthink in certain circles. I'm just keeping it going one story at a time.
Yeah, it's a grind, it sounds like. How long have you been at this?
I've been writing novels for about 5 years now. The comic books started last year. We managed to get the first issue done in about 6 months, and then I ran its campaign. Then we completed issue number 2 in 3.5, almost 4.
That's quite an effort.
Yeah.
I don't know if you maybe shaved the sides of your head and gave yourself like a green mohawk, and you went totally edgelord and called everybody on the internet gay, would you sell more books?
Maybe, but that's not my style.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Is there diminishing returns to that kind of business model?
The rage bait, or as I call them, shitbird style of engagement. Yeah, I think there is. We've seen over the last couple of months a significant resistance to all of this backbiting and bullshit with each other. I've tried to stay out of it, and it's a drawback because you don't get noticed if you don't stand up and yell at everybody. But I would much prefer to have legitimate fans, people that have found it and go, "Oh, damn, this is actually really good," than to think I'm getting sales because people think it's funny to watch me yell about everybody else's stuff.
You're right. I mean, what drives that sense of integrity, that you don't want to take the easier path to success, that you want to stick to your guns? I
think it's just because I'm a Gen Xer.
Do you think Gen Xers have integrity?
I think we have in that age range, we have a understanding that we have to do things ourselves, and we don't want to be to feel like we're beholden to others, and we don't want to feel like we succeeded on someone else's back.
Right. Unfortunately, though, we have to find our own pathways to success.
Yep. I find that to be more fun. It's definitely an adventure. No, it's not the most profitable way to do things, but I make pretty decent money with my day job, and it keeps me going with these other things. Like I said, I'm a writing coach. I'm also an editor. For those of you who believe that editors suck, how dare you? And unlike most of the other editors out there, I'm not going to try to rip your arm off with cost. I try to keep my prices fair because I know how much of a struggle it is to do all of this stuff. I've done it myself.
Well, and also the personal investment that's necessary to actually make this work out. You have to put in time and resources.
Oh, yeah. Which doesn't leave me any time to make videos shitting on everybody's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I'm asked to, I come on certain shows to do so.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Please feel free to take a shit here anytime. Everybody does. No, I'm kidding, of course. But
I had a lot of fun doing the review stream. That was nice. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Oh, people like seeing honest opinions. They don't get enough of them on the internet, surprisingly, because
Yeah.
I think your personality and your persona and the way the audience engages with you is how genuine you are. And people forego that genuine attribute of their character because they think they just need to chase some ill-defined aspect of the algorithm. Oh, this is the
Right.
current trending thing. This is the blood sport I need to be on top of, and this is the audience that's really going to make me rich. But ultimately, people are going to want to know how genuine you are, and everything is going to eventually die away. You're going to be left with very little at the end if you're just endlessly burning your credibility. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It drives me crazy, and always I always say, say what you mean what you say, and you can't go wrong. Create the way you want to create, and be honest about it.
is there room though for honesty when you're engaging with an audience? How much sincerity are they looking for, or how much are they looking for you to just market to them?
I don't
Credibility is
really,
key, but
yeah, I don't really know that that's like, I could be wrong. I'll be the first to admit it if I am, but I don't really know that that's any creator's purview. The way that dialogue works, the way that communication works, is positing and sharing an idea and a concept and receiving the other person's opinion on it. So unless someone says, hey, stop talking so much and just tell me about the book, I don't know that it's my personal responsibility at that point to try to psychically know whether or not I'm pushing the envelope or not.
Mhm.
It's more of a do what you got to do and receive criticism and adjust accordingly. If you find the criticism valid, adjust it. If you don't, ignore it. Move on with your life.
Yeah, it's a challenge, especially to have criticism and correction done publicly. Not everybody takes that very well.
No, they don't. I had Mint Salad did a review of JISEDAI #1 and lambasted it pretty heavily, and I listened to what she had to say. She had a couple of good points, and then I turned the video off, and that was it.
Right.
I applied those few things that I took from her critique to #2 and never looked back about it. I don't care. It doesn't hurt me in any way, in my opinion. It just helped me refine a few things I've gotten wrong, but seem to be correct.
Is it justified to expect like some minimum level of mental capacity in the people that are critiquing your work? Or is every criticism just fair game and open to interpretation?
I think every criticism is fair game and open to interpretation as long as it's in good faith.
Good faith.
Yeah, I know that's a hard one. And again, but that goes back to the being genuine, having integrity. If the video itself, like, say if someone does a video and they're just speaking about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they know is something that is industry standard that wasn't done, then I could look at that and go, okay, well, I intentionally didn't follow the industry standard, so I can throw that aside. But this particular thing that they didn't like, I was kind of on the fence about when I did it. So next time I won't do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But if the person's on the video just going, this dude's a piece of crap and his book looks like it was made with crayon and he, kills cats and eats spinach from the can, stupid, crazy stuff like that, I'm going to be like, I don't care what you think.
But I mean, in that kind of more scattershot approach, is there a higher likelihood to hit some hard truths? If somebody is maliciously and with intent critiquing your work, and they're specifically trying to tease out all of the deficiencies, are they more likely to hit a very key aspect than somebody?
More likely, no, but a broken clock is right twice a day.
Ah, that's true.
So, it's possible. And I'm not saying totally discredit anything anybody ever says. I'm just saying you, as the creator, apply the criticisms fairly. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, in the independent creator world, verse, whatever you want to call it, who take these things all very personally. And I've heard a lot of arguments about, well, anytime you say something bad about the book, it's potentially ruins my ability to sell a copy. No.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't. There's no such thing as bad press was an apt phrase, because even pointing out that something is bad still points it out.
Well, it's better than deceiving the audience, right? I mean, would you rather have it be said on a review so that you can correct that? Or would you rather have your audience silent quitting and just not buying the second book without you getting a chance to course correct because somebody went out and told you that this is what you need to do?
Expand on that a little bit.
Well, they're saying that the bad reviews would hurt sales, but also the fundamental poor quality of the product is going to hurt sales. And you'd rather hear it than have your customers just simply not return, because at least if you heard it, you can change that and make sure that those things are addressed. You can even market that and say, look, I've heard what people have to say. And for all of you who aren't vocalizing exactly the issues you had, this is what I'm doing with the new product, the new issue that I'm putting out, whatever. And I'm going to make sure that it's better in all these different ways. So in a sense, bad criticism can help sales because it tells you exactly what you need to do to market to your audience.
I don't know that that's really bad criticism. That would be part one of my response is any criticism that points out a fundamental flaw isn't bad criticism. It may be conveyed in a way that could be construed as bad, but the actual fact of the matter, the flaw being pointed out, for example, a lot of the things that we talked about in the Godlike review, those are not bad criticisms. Right. They're simply criticisms. They're pointing out flaws, and those are the things that you can definitely adjust. I think that if a project reaches a point, and I've said this before repeatedly, if I don't fund enough to pay for the next issue, I don't make another issue. The fans have spoken with their wallet, and if I'm not living up to their expectations and their desires, I shouldn't be making the book anymore.
Bad criticism is fundamentally, bad faith criticism. Sorry, let's specific with our terminology. It's essentially personal, right?
Very much so.
If you're attacking the creator.
Yeah, blood sports. There's no reason to do that.
It feels like that's what Mint was essentially doing, though, with hers.
Could be, but I'm not going to take it that way because I'm not in her head. I don't know what she was thinking. Yeah. I only know what she said. So same thing with Malin. I'm aware of him. There are things that I've seen that make me believe I wouldn't want to be his friend, but I read his comic book with open eyes.
So what you're saying is you wouldn't sing happy birthday to him?
No, probably not. I might post a happy birthday just to be polite, but I wouldn't go out of my way.
That's not good enough. You're not going to like that. You're going to have to sing.
Yeah, but I read his comic book with open eyes and without any bias behind it. I just opened the pages and absorbed the information and the panels. It had nothing to do with Malin, in my opinion, personally. He's whoever he is, and it's not my place to judge that. Never, and I don't think it ever will be. So, bad faith criticism, blood sports, that sort of thing, I ignore them for the most part.
So you're essentially in agreement with Eric July that bad faith criticism is not criticism that you need to build your business model from. It wouldn't be conducive to your success.
No, it wouldn't. And I really don't think this. So this is a thing. There's two spheres here when it comes to that. There's the creative sphere and there's the business sphere. Mm-hmm. And the very slim connection in that Venn diagram is the product. So when it comes to business, I don't do criticism when it comes to the actual business, the financial side, the production side, all of that stuff. Nobody gets to say anything about it. The creative side, definitely I accept criticism on, because the creative side, art, the actual storytelling, the narrative, the details, the things like that. Nobody tells me what kind of paper to use. Nobody tells me who to print with. Nobody tells me how to run my business or do my job, but they can absolutely tell me if I screwed something up creating the art itself.
That's almost the challenge that I think creators face here, is that in some cases the product and the art is almost secondary to the YouTube and the social media aspect. People are looking for a lot of the parasocial engagement, the pseudo entertainment that they get.
Yeah. And I don't mind interacting with fans. I think it's fun, and it's been really enjoyable to have conversations with them. But honestly, if I didn't have to, I wouldn't do any of the face-to-face stuff. You know, nobody really, like, certain people did know who Tolkien was as a person. Certain people did know who Arthur Conan Doyle was as a person. Certain people knew who Ursula K. Le Guin was as a person. But the vast majority of people only knew these people write cool books.
I agree.
So to me, this parasocial relationship thing is unhealthy. And I do it because that's the culture that we live in. But if I didn't have to, I wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing like Mark Miller recently trying to venture into this arena, and he's been doing more of the circuit for this consumer base. Let's put it that way. So he did an interview with Gary and Az on Nerdrotic's channel.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not adverse to the commentary class, the people who are anti-mainstream, even though they've started to go a little more towards the mainstream, since Gary does appear on Piers Morgan's show to do cultural commentary. So he's almost a public figure at this. Well, I mean, he's a public figure on YouTube, but a mainstream figure at this point. But definitely still outside of the mainstream, an alt-mainstream persona. And then he also did an interview with John Longbox. So even a big name creator of that stature and that level of talent is venturing into this this field of having to become a radio personality and having to engage a little bit more directly with fandom to make sure that he's able to create new and unique properties going forward.
I like Victor's comment, but yeah, a lot of lot of what's been happening with the more celebrity independents, like Eric, Nerdrotic, these guys, they're at the cusp level that like Ben Shapiro and them used to be before the Daily Wire incorporated. They're just on that point where they're about to become mainstream, and that's what happens. Everybody is that way. That's the system, how it works. You build an audience, then you start to network, and then you move into what we all know is public interest, what everyone knows about. Your name becomes household.
Yes.
Eventually. So it's not really a surprise to me that that they're doing that. It was inevitable the harder that they pushed, and congratulations to them for doing it. Would I want to do that at any point? Probably not. I mean, I'm content to hang out on IAK, drink my bourbon, and eventually sink into my big yellow chair here and goof around with the guys. But I wouldn't want to be a celebrity. I just want to write cool stories that people enjoy. And if they want to come talk to me at a convention, they can come talk to me at a convention, because I'm there to be at the convention.
So you know what the irony is in all of that is that hypothetically, let's say Gary put out a work of his own, and say he was a mediocre talent, maybe even like below mediocre. Say he didn't hire an editor, for example, and put out a comic.
Damn him. No, go ahead.
You would get far more reach and far more success than the most talented, than the Mark Miller of this space, with his smaller audience and diminished radio talent. But Gary's work is the one that would be consumed by a much larger audience and appreciated for what it was, whereas possibly a hypothetical Mark Miller could be ignored, assuming that the name didn't have traction or weight with the audience. So the talent in the product is almost irrelevant in a lot of this endeavor. Isn't that sad? Not to put a bitter tone to any of this, but isn't that the reality that we're faced with? Mediocre talents rise here. Have I lost you? I feel like your internet has frozen. Daniel P., come back to us. All right, everybody. Looks like Daniel P. has had... Looks like the glowies got Daniel P. Oh, wow. Did I say something? Hopefully they're not sitting outside my house in a black van, going after that well-read guy. Oh, he's back. Let's get Daniel's response, and then maybe we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, I'm very sorry about that. We should probably wrap up because something's going on with my internet.
Cool.
So you were saying?
I'm saying that celebrity carries more weight here, and the product is secondary. And you could have a product that is mediocre in comparison, but would do far better than the most stellar work imaginable, sold by a nondescript YouTube personality.
I think on the internet for sure.
So isn't that an irony here that we don't actually get to put our best work forward?
I mean, if you're not trying to put your best work forward, you shouldn't be putting work forward, period. But on the internet, it's more about who you are than what you've created in the world. Like I said, with my street team, I have comics and comic shops that sell consistently, and I've only produced one actual comic book so far. JISEDAI #1 comic out in the world sells far better in stores than it does on the internet.
Right. And maybe that's where we need to remain, is in the more commercial market, more accessible to the audience that wants that specific product.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a couple of guys that have talked about bringing back the spinner rack concept, and I've bandied it about to some local businesses, and some friends have bandied about to local businesses. I always thought that was a fantastic idea to get back to that. And I think it was, in the mainstream, it probably is not as profitable to them because they're producing 1 billion books and paying 1 billion people to do it, like constant flow of employees. But for the little independent guys producing this stuff and then wanting to get them out there into the world, having a physical thing that you can put down on a table at a convention or at a local fair, there's guaranteed returns. It's been done with novels forever. My clients and colleagues in the fiction writing sphere for novels sell more books when they're sitting at the local flea market than they do online. And that's in one day.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that sentiment. So I guess with that, we'll probably move to a close. Victor wants some of his comments to be acknowledged. So Victor, they're relying on celebrity and are afraid to show their complete product, unlike Rini or manga, where people are desperate for more. That's what I thought was interesting about your manga approach, is that there is a massive demand. We just haven't seen it grow yet in the YouTube crowdfunding, pseudo celebrity personality space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if there's some potential there to tap into.
I'm giving it a try. I have the digital version up on Global Comics for a couple of bucks. When #2 comes out, I'm going to make #1 free, so anybody can pick it up for nothing. I run digital sales every now and then for the novels, and I have an audiobook for people that prefer to just listen to stories read by a fantastic narrator. He's got a wonderful voice, and I really enjoyed working with him. And that's my whole business model for JISEDAI in general, is to make the story available in any format that anybody can enjoy, so the whole world gets to experience the tale.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody, if you want some good product from a creator with integrity and investment into the quality of his product, not necessarily his celebrity, wanting to put out good books and entertain people and connect with stories, check out
and help others put their stuff out too.
There you go. Yeah, the Iron Age Hangout, A Drink with Crazy. You guys feature quite a lot of creators over there.
Every Friday we try to have a new or semi-celebrity creator on as much as we possibly can, and just have a good time. Like our show, we'll talk a little bit about the creation, but mostly we just treat it like we're sitting in Royce's garage drinking.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way to do it. You create a fun atmosphere, and you get people wanting to hang out and party. And honestly, the parasocial aspect helps in a lot of ways. But I know it sucks. I know it sucks letting people.
I've tried to reach out to Rennie. Hopefully she'll get in touch with me and we can make that happen, Victor.
Yeah. Rennie's a really great creator. So
yeah,
met her, talked with her.
Awesome book.
She's got a good show, and she's definitely all about helping out the indie creators. And she puts out great product herself. So
Yeah,
there's a
it's
lot
an
to be said
awesome
about that.
book.
Yeah. So everybody, go check out Daniel P. Go check out his site. I put the link in the chat. Go check out Rini anytime you can.
And if you're interested in my not horribly priced editing services or just want help working on your project, check out whimsyland.org. That's my business website.
Cool. With that, everyone, we will say good night, and we'll see all of you really soon. Take care.
To be lies, all the joy within you dies. Don't you want somebody to love? Don't you need somebody to love? Won't you love somebody to love? You better find somebody to love. Don't you?